Good evening. Welcome to the July 19th, 2018 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Before we get started, just a few things. The first thing is, for all of you who are here tonight, if you can do us a favor and silence or turn off your cell phones because they interfere with our recording equipment, we will do the same. In addition, if you are inclined to speak to one another in the audience, not when you're speaking to us, if you can do us a favor and go out in the hallway to speak rather than speaking in the auditorium, because that also interferes with our recording equipment. In addition, I just want to mention that we're going to go a little bit out of order tonight in terms of the agenda. We do have several adjournments, but in terms, I know most of you are here for one particular application, that is Lewis Road PRD. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be first calling the three other applications that are on tonight, which is Soloff, 3Kid Holding LLC, and Zwickel, before we begin the public hearing on Lewis Road PRD, just so that those folks can get out of, be able to leave at a reasonable time, because I think we're going to have a long evening tonight. And with that, we will get started with the agenda.
Okay, so you folks know, there's some changes to the agenda. Adam was mentioned, item number 5, which is Michael Esposito and Louis Esposito. I'm going to move to hold that over to 8:16.
Second.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Item 6, Box Tree Landscaping, Inc. The board is in receipt of a request from the applicant to close the public hearing and render a decision. They're on the agenda tonight because they were going to come in with more information for the board in support of their case, but they've chosen not to do that. So I'll move that we close the public hearing, for a determination on 8/2/18.
Second.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Who did the second? You did. Okay, Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Item 7 on the agenda, Permanent of Bridgehampton et al. Going to move that we hold that over to 8/2.
Second.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Item 8 on the agenda, Thomas Roscoe. I'll move that we
Hold on 1 second.
Yes, ma'am?
I want to just have the board vote on the negative declaration. The board was lead agency on this. This was circulated, but we haven't voted on it yet, so just ask the board to make a motion to adopt a negative declaration with respect to SECRA for this application.
For Roscoe.
Thomas Roscoe.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Recuse myself on that application.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
And then I'll move to hold it over to 8/16.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Recuse.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Item 9 on the agenda, which is Charles Styler. I'll move that we hold it over to September 20.
Second.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
The following decisions will be, I'll move that we hold these over to 8/2, which is Richard Martino, Randall Apt, Sagliaro Rental Properties, Inc.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Also on the decision calendar, Nelson Mendez Lopez. I'll move that we put that over to 8/16.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, moving to the beginning of the agenda. As Adam has said, we're going to move it around. We'll do number 2 in the 4th position. So item 1 on the agenda is Justin.
Keith? Can you just make sure someone's here for that before you read the whole thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Item 1 on the agenda, before I read all that, item 1 on the agenda is Justin Soloff, 48 Seagate, and Suffolk County Tax Map 900-354-4-69 in West Hampton. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the town code to legalize an accessory apartment constructed within the main dwelling without the benefit of building permit on a non-conforming lot. 1, 330-11.2F, accessory apartment special standards, to allow an accessory apartment to be located on a lot that is less than 30,000 square feet. 2, for a lot area of 8,000 square feet, where 16,000 square feet is required, 80% of the required 20,000 square feet. 3, for a lot width of 80 feet, where 84 feet is required, 70% of the required 120 feet. 4, for a principal rear yard setback of 34 feet to the second story overhang, where 42 feet is required, 70% of the required 60 feet. 5, for an accessory rear yard setback of 6.5 feet, where 7 feet is required, 70% of the required 10 feet. And 6, for an accessory side yard setback of 4.7 feet, where 7 feet is required, 70% of the 10 feet. 2, 330-11.2G, 1, to allow the accessory apartment to be 70% of the total floor area of the main dwelling, where a maximum of 35% is permitted. In addition, applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the town code to legalize a shed constructed without the benefit of a building permit. 1, 330-11, residential district table of dimensional regulations for an accessory rear yard setback of 6.5 feet where 10 feet is required, and an accessory side yard setback of 4.7 feet where 10 feet is required. And 2, 330-84D, pyramid height for an encroachment in the amount of 395 cubic feet, 125 cubic feet north elevation, and 270 cubic feet south elevation, and any other relief necessary.
Could I have your affidavit of posting, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Board has jurisdiction.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Just have to swear you in unless you're an attorney.
Sure, no, I'm not.
Okay, if you can raise your right hand and if you can just state your name and address.
Justin Soloff, 48 Seagate Avenue, West Hampton, New York.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, so if you can tell us about your application.
Okay, great. First off, thanks for allowing me to be here and presenting in front of the board. I'm here to hopefully apply for an accessory apartment variance as well as the shed on my property. I purchased the property earlier this year, and the first for the apartment, it's been pre-existing, so when I purchased the house, it was already in the home, as well as the shed. Regarding the accessory apartment, the house itself is a 2-level split house, so it's a first floor apartment, it's not a basement apartment. Like I said, it's within the house, so I'm not making any changes, I'm not adding any square footage. It would not cause any sort of undesirable change to the neighborhood or character of the neighborhood. As it pertains to the shed, from my understanding after speaking to the building department, has been there since the 70s as far as a shed being in that location. I think the old owner had replaced the shed because the shed now is in great shape. It's probably 5 years old or less. But I think as far as the location, it's been there for many, many years, since the 70s. And then just finally, I'd like to say, after doing a little research, comparing my application to another gentleman's application, it was May of last year where a gentleman had came in front of the board requesting a variance. His lot square footage was 7,409 square feet, where 32,000 square feet is required, compared to mine, which is 8,000 square feet, where 16,000 square feet is required. And he had a 92% total floor area compared to 70% of mine. So I just wanted to make that public as well.
Okay. So just have a few questions for you about the circumstances.
Sure.
So you bought the house with the accessory apartment and the shed there. I presume you had an attorney when you closed on your purchase?
I did.
So did you have a conversation with your attorney at any point about particularly about the accessory apartment?
Somewhat. So the story is when first off, when I was looking for the house, I'm a newly acquired police officer, so I'm on a level 2 salaried income, which is quite low. So my whole intention was to look for a home that had an apartment that I could rent out so I could afford to actually be a homeowner. When I had first saw the house, I was unaware that the apartment downstairs was illegal. When I went into contract, at that point, I learned that the apartment was not legal through my attorney as well as through the seller's agent.
Could you say that last sentence again?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Say that last sentence again. And your attorney?
And my attorney as well as the seller's agent had notified me that the apartment was not legal. So
Only at the time that had you already signed the contract? Or-
after it went into contract.
After you were in contract?
Correct.
Okay.
So I was told at that point that it would be, because the town is looking for affordable housing, that it would be, I don't want to use the term easy, but definitely attainable to get a permit. So I was fine with the transaction at that point. After the transaction took place, I went down to the town building department to apply for the building permit for the accessory apartment, and then at that point I was told that the house doesn't meet the proper setbacks, and then I would have to apply for a variance.
Okay. Was there any discussion about the shed?
The shed with my attorney?
Yeah.
Not particularly, not that I can
Yeah.
recall. I was more concerned about the accessory apartment more than anything.
Okay. So the shed and the accessory apartment existed on the property before you bought it, so I presume that you wouldn't have any information other than when you indicated about the shed being there since the 70s as to how long the accessory apartment was there. Did you ever get any information about that?
The only, not from the sellers, the only, the neighbor next door had said that there's been someone living in the apartment for many, many years. I just don't know the exact time frame.
Okay. All right.
How big is the shed?
I believe I know it's under 120 square feet. But, let's see if I can get there.
Small enough that it wouldn't require a permit, but it would still have to meet setbacks.
Yeah.
Correct.
If it needs variance because of its location, then you would have to get approvals you're applying for. But
Right.
some sheds don't need approvals if they're conforming.
Right.
Okay.
How many bedrooms is the apartment?
One bedroom.
One bedroom?
Correct.
And you live there, owner occupied? You live there?
I live in the house, yes.
Okay. And basically, what you're looking to do is you're looking to rent out what is going to be a large accessory apartment, and then you're going to stay in a smaller portion of the house, and you're doing this in order to be able to afford the house.
Right, well,
It's the other way around.
Is it the other way around?
Upstairs is bigger than downstairs.
right,
Okay,
the apartment is
okay.
smaller than the upstairs. I would be living, the upstairs
I
is a
see.
3-bedroom, 1 bath.
Okay.
And let me just, the square footage on that is 750 square feet, and then the accessory apartment would be the lower level, one bedroom, 1 bath, 504 square feet.
Okay. All right.
Modest apartment, modest house.
Right. Okay.
I have no problem with it. I think it's fine.
Great.
Justin, when did you purchase this house?
I purchased it in May of this year.
So you purchased it and then you came forth pretty immediately in order
Correct,
to
right.
deal with this?
Right away, correct.
Okay. Yeah, and one of the reasons I asked the questions about what you were aware of was because we try to discourage people who have situations where they're dealing with as-bills. So in this situation, you bought the property, you basically took on the fact that there were as-built structures on the property when you purchased it. But we often have the case when that is not how it happened. Sometimes a property owner or a contractor may have built structures without getting any approvals, and it's particularly concerning to us when people who are in the construction business do this without getting approvals first.
Sure.
So we typically will ask these kinds of questions, but in this circumstance, I can certainly understand how this could have happened the way it did, and you're just looking to be able to afford to live in your house. So, and that's really what the accessory apartment law is for.
Right.
Okay. And the other thing I just wanted to mention is a lot of the relief, it looks like an enormous amount of relief in the application, but what happens is everything that's not conforming on the property, that's been there ever since the house was built, has to be listed in the application, even though it's all the measurements as to what is currently there. So, okay, any other questions from members of the board?
So can I ask him, who is the lawyer?
My attorney, his name, I'd have to get back to you on that. I can't recall his name. He's from up in Hauppauge, I think he's based out of.
Okay, you could do that in a written submission if you want to send us just a letter or an email just letting us know who the attorney was.
Sure.
That's fine.
Sure.
I think we'll need an architect. a
That's
letter.
exactly what I was going to ask next. Yeah, the shed has to live up to current codes. So we're going to need a letter from the architect, basically that the shed is stable enough to be approved.
Okay, sure.
So that's the other thing we're going to need.
Can I ask, is there an opportunity to move that shed into a complying location on the property
Yeah.
so that it would meet setbacks?
The only issue with that would be all the properties in that area are quite small, so I don't want to say moving it 10 feet from the side and rear would put it in the middle of my property, but it would put it in just a very awkward position where it would be almost unreasonable to place it there. So I know many of the other properties, not that I'm saying it's right or wrong, they do have sheds that are all sort of in a similar location as to mine. I think for that reason, if it had to meet the 10-foot setbacks on each side, it would just be in a very awkward spot on the property.
Yeah.
How about you give us an estimate? How much it
Understood.
would cost you to move it?
I'm sorry, sir?
How much it would cost you to move it?
I've gotten a price about $1,500 to move it.
Could you have that as part of your submission with the letter from the architect?
Sure.
That's just gonna help your
We're not
case.
looking to
We're
have
not
you move it,
looking,
we're looking at it as part of the record.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Get
to make it look like, you know,
No
Financial
problem.
hardship,
economic
maybe?
hardship.
No problem.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to mention is this is a parcel size of 8,000 square feet. So
Right.
getting
It's not
anything to
big.
conform is really challenging at all. So, so that's another, there's a limitation on the property. So-
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, members of the board? Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of Soloff? Sir, if you want to, you can either have a seat or you can go over to the podium, whatever you prefer. Sure. And I just have to swear you in. So if you can state your name and address?
John Franciosa, 57 Seagate.
Okay.
Avenue.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing
Sure.
but the truth?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you can tell us your comments.
Our concern is, I haven't met Justin, he hasn't come introduced, I've been there 26 years across the street. The existing apartment, it's been in the same family for, before I got there, so I don't know, they call it an apartment, it's been more of a mother-daughter, what have you, so. My main concern, I want to take up people's time, I have a big agenda here, is next to him is another house for sale, it's the same style, very easily convertible, and next to that house is another, it's for sale, easily convertible. So before we know it, we have 1, 2, 3 apartments or houses with 2-family, you call them accessory apartments. Not crazy about it, it's a little narrow road. If you've been there, it's about 10 feet of pavement, it's a paper road, it's not a town-maintained road, so those are our main concerns.
So would you prefer that we deny the application?
We're not crazy about having multiple families. Because like I said, the house is next to it and the house next to it, next thing you know, you have 3 houses in a row with apartments.
Well,
They're all for sale.
and I
in the same
understand.
style.
That some of the accessory apartments might be complying. They may not need variance relief. You know, and the other thing is the accessory apartment law has some limitations in it as to how it's to be utilized.
The intention of the accessory apartment law
Is to allow people to be able to afford to live in their homes.
But there's
Some-
limitations on who it can be rented to, and there has to be owner occupied.
yes, that's how I understood it,
Yep,
yeah.
there's a
So
whole-
how is that policed or enforced or what?
That is
Through code
code enforcement.
Okay.
But,
Well,
you know,
like I
you
said,
can find out if.
I don't know Justin's intention, I haven't met him, so we just came to express our concern.
Okay.
May I respond real quick?
Sure.
I just,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
I just want to assure
address
that,
his questions.
obviously, if I'm going to be living in the house, I want a specific, I understand the tenant qualifications. I actually have another police officer that works here that is ready to go as soon as I can get the paperwork in order. But I would never want someone in my house that I don't feel comfortable with. It would be 1 to 2 people at the absolute max, so I just want to let that be said if that,
Right.
2 police officers in the house.
correct.
I think the safety of the neighborhood would certainly increase.
It's a safety.
Your night patrol.
We've never had problems.
No, I know.
Yeah, and the other thing about the accessory apartment law is the reason there's an owner occupancy provision is so the owner is there. So the owner
That's
knows what's
wonderful,
going
that's
on
fine,
in the house.
as long as that's
Right.
what the case is. Like I said, I haven't met him.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Thank
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard this evening with connection with the application of Soloff? Okay, I have to swear you in as well. If you can state your name and address, please.
My name is Tim Farnan. My address is 50 Seagate in West Hampton.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, you can tell us your comments.
I have something that was sent to me by a neighbor who couldn't be here tonight. He's in Europe right now. Can I read that first?
You can.
Does it
Hopefully
matter
it's
if he's
it's
not here?
20 pages long.
No, it's just a brief email.
Okay.
His name is Neil Weinberg, and he writes, I am the owner of 48A Seagate Avenue since 1999. The home resides directly behind 48, he's 48A Seagate. The home resides directly behind 48 Seagate. This has always been a single-family neighborhood. I strongly feel that setting a precedent to allow multiple renters per house would be detrimental to the area. I therefore am not in favor of the proposed variance at 48 Seagate to make that a legal two-family home.
Do you want to submit that, or you just want it read into the record?
I can submit it, yeah.
Okay, I'll take it.
I have a little more on this page,
Okay.
so. And then from my side, I reside at 50 Seagate, directly next door to 48. My family and I have lived at this property since 2003. One of the reasons we moved here was that it was a quiet area with very little traffic on the street, and I don't think we would have purchased the house if there was a multiple unit home next door. That wasn't what we were looking for. We were looking for a single family neighborhood. Allowing the property at 48 Seagate to create two separate apartments would not be consistent with the rest of the neighborhood, in my view. And to my knowledge, every property in the area on both Seagate and the surrounding streets are single-family homes. I understand Mr. Soloft is looking to live there and have a renter, and he's indicated, I haven't met him either, but he's indicated he might have another police officer there. Part of the worry is not what's going to happen tomorrow, but what's going to happen 5 years from now. When he sells the house, it might be a different story, the other people living in it.
Throughout the time that there's an accessory apartment, should it be approved, the owner of the property, whoever that might be, from time to time has to file an application or a renewal application with the building department. Okay?
Every 3
Got it.
years.
Every new person.
Yes.
So prior to Mr. Soloft purchasing the home, the previous homeowner had two separate, it was not owner occupied, and there were two separate renters living there.
Yes.
Which was illegal.
And in
It
fact,
was
one-
illegal, so, but
Right.
nobody ever did anything about it.
I understand,
So
and one-
our fear is that would continue, and
Okay, well, one of the disadvantages of accessory apartments or structures, or accessory structures, primary structures existing without approvals, is that you don't have the town making sure that the electric and the plumbing and everything else is working. So it's safe and secure. So one of the advantages of legalizing an accessory apartment that apparently may have been used for years and years without approvals is to make sure that that accessory apartment is built properly.
and that's great. So I guess my question is, with the previous tenants, why, the town was called a number of times about this issue, and nothing changed about it. And my fear is now that it's legal, it would be even harder to get a bad situation out of there.
Yeah, I can't speak to code enforcement as to what they did and didn't do. All I know is when they get a complaint, they, I'm sure, investigate it. And as far as things go with an approved accessory apartment, it's supposed to be used pursuant to the accessory apartment application and whatever approvals that we grant.
Got it. So with no other accessory apartments in the neighborhood, for a wide range, from what I understand, are we setting a precedent by creating one now?
Not at all, because many of the homes in the neighborhood, my guess is they could have accessory apartments without getting any variance relief whatsoever. Not necessarily, it isn't
Or not,
necessary.
and there's no
You're
precedent
saying
for
I could
everything
just
is-
create an apartment in my house?
The town board, several years ago, created the accessory apartment law. You really should take a look at it and read it. It is something that the town board decided to do a very long time ago. Okay? So they wanted people to be able to afford to live out here. And so they wanted a vehicle in order to make sure that people who are having a hard time had an ability to be able to live in the town of Southampton. As I think probably most of you are here know, this is not the most inexpensive place in the world in which to buy a house. And so that's the reason it was created. So when we have variance applications, we consider what the town board's intent was in creating that law at that time. So in terms of what can happen down the road, well, it may be that there might be some accessory apartment applications that might come before us, but from your community, and it may be that accessory apartments will be granted by the building department because they don't need variances. It exists. It's been in the law for many years. This is not new. And if you have a concern about the accessory apartment law overall, feel free to talk to the town board about it.
I don't. I'm just, like I said, it's a single-family neighborhood, and I think it's in our best interest that it continues to be a single-family neighborhood.
Okay, well,
From our standpoint. I understand from the law's standpoint, it sounds like it's a little different.
okay, well, appreciate your comments.
We hear your concerns.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, is there anyone else who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of Soloff? If not, Jason?
Mr. Zoloff, when do you think you could get us the letter from your architect?
I'll call him on my way out and try and get it.
Like a week?
Sure,
I can
yeah.
do it. Okay.
No problem at all.
So I would like,
And the letter to relocate, just for the record.
I'm sorry.
Relocate of the shed.
Sure,
Yes,
yes,
The estimate.
And the condition of it, yeah.
sure.
Jason?
so I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing and leave it open for written submissions for our next meeting, August 2nd.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa? Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
You too.
Item 3 on the agenda is Three Kid Holding LLC, 269 Butter Lane, Bridgehampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-52-1-36.4. Applicant requests relief from Town Code 330-205B2, general provisions for a side yard setbacks of 4.3 feet from the northerly lot line and 15.2 feet from the southerly lot line where 20 feet is required for a proposed freestanding sign and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction?
Good evening. Just have to swear you in unless you're an attorney. Not an attorney, okay. All right, you can state your name and address.
Susan Barley, Van Scoys, Southeast East Hampton.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth? And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, can you tell us about your application?
The application is for a business sign at 269 Butter Lane. The property itself, the property is a flag lot, so we don't have a conforming location in which to situate a business sign. So we're proposing to put it in the flag, which is only 20 feet wide, and therefore we have no envelope for a sign.
All right. We did get some comments from the building department that I just
Okay.
want to read to you about this one. This is from Mark Vasekis, Senior Building Inspector, and this is what he put put in his comments, and it may be that they were already addressed, I'm not sure, but I just want to get it into the
Very
record.
bottom.
Okay, so it says, further details must be provided with regard to the intensity of the light source in terms of comparative luminosity between a 60-watt luminaire and a 60-watt LED light source, and the shielding component as related to the method of illuminating the sign to indicate compliance with 330-207. Illuminated signs, the Planning Division may comment on the rural nature of the surrounding area and sign illumination as it relates to Chapter 330, Article 29, outdoor lighting.
Okay.
All right, so that's what we got from the building department.
Okay.
And I believe we got eight comments. Didn't we get something on this one?
I think we did. I was just gonna.
Okay,
I think I saw something.
I think there was something, so.
But presumably you're going to comply with the lighting, right? You're not asking for relief?
No, we're not asking for relief. I think actually it's supposed to be an LED light that is equivalent to a 60-watt incandescent light, but I'll have to confirm that with the lighting people.
Okay, have we referred this to the planning board? Okay, all right, so my perspective on sign applications is if the planning board's okay with it, I think usually I'm okay with it.
Okay.
So if the planning board says they don't see a problem with it, at least speaking for myself, I don't think I would. So we don't have that referral yet from the planning board, but when we get that, that will indicate where they stand on the sign
Interesting, because we
application.
went to the planning board first and they sent this to you, so I thought it came with some information.
Well, it's a
but-
little confusing.
Yeah.
We send a referral report to them, and then they send us basically a letter.
You went to the planning board for what?
Well, we went to the planning board as part of the site plan, and we included
while
the
ago,
sign
or this-
application.
or-
Yes, a while ago. They've
Okay.
actually already told us they don't have a problem with it, but then when we went to finalize it and then go to the building department, Claire Shea kind of pulled me aside and said, I think you need a variance for it, so we can't give you our approval yet, which is how we ended up here.
So this is, you're before them for a final approval of a site plan?
Yes,
Okay.
so it's just a matter of some paperwork, I guess, to get it over to you.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, it's just a referral report that they will send to us.
Maybe give a call downstairs to address that.
Yeah, I'll
Make
touch
sure
base
they're
with
on
Mark and find
Yeah,
out what he needs.
that would be good, yeah. Anything he's concerned about, we just
Can I
want...
keep this?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, you may.
Yep, yep. We just want to make sure that the building department has everything they need.
Okay.
Okay. And the fact that it's a flag,
You're limited as to where you can put it.
yeah.
Yeah, there's no other place to put it where it makes sense.
You want people to see
the sign.
to see
Find
the
us.
sign, and having it away from the flag wouldn't serve much of any purpose. All right. Any questions of members of the board? Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of 3 Kid Holding LLC? If not, Helen?
Candace, when do you think we'll have our information from the planning board?
I'm actually not sure.
So should we put it,
Yeah, put it on for August 2nd
put it off for
for decision,
a decision?
keeping it
Okay.
open.
We're keeping it open.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. DeCessa?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Mr. Hahn? Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you for being here.
Thank
And
you.
it should be on for August 2nd, but if you want to double check with Candace, because if it turns out we don't have the referral report by then it would have to be on the second meeting.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, Item 4 on the agenda is Doran Zweikel, 27 Peninsula Drive, Noyak, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-17-2-70H. Applicant requests relief from Town Code 330-11, Residential Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations to allow the attic space in an existing 2-story dwelling on a non-conforming lot to be converted into habitable space, which will result in a 3-story dwelling where only 2 stories is permitted and any other relief necessary.
Is the applicant here for this? Oh, no, they're gonna have to get second called.
Yep, it's going to be a second call. Applicant's going to have a late night.
All right,
See you in the morning.
moving on.
Moving on. Go to item 2 on the agenda, which is Lewis Road, PRD, The Hills, application 18,086. Location is Lewis Road, Spinney Road, East Quogue, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-250-3-1 et al. Pursuant to Town Code 330-165C, appeals on interpretation of zoning law and map. The building inspector appeals to the ZBA the issue as to whether a proposed 18-hole golf course is customary or accessory to the proposed 118-home subdivision, or does it constitute a second principal use?
Board has jurisdiction?
Okay. Before we get started with the public hearing, I just want to mention a few things about, well, what is going to be, I think, probably a long public hearing tonight. We're going to be imposing a 3-minute time limit on the public to make comments. So you'll have 3 minutes, whoever wants to talk, to tell us verbally whatever you want to tell us, but we will keep the public hearing record open in case you want to follow up whatever you told us, tell us tonight with a written submission. In addition, and that will apply to members of the public, but the attorneys for both sides are going to be given some latitude in terms of a time limit. We're going to give them more time. In addition, I just want to mention, I understand this is an application that a lot of people care about very much. That's why you're all here tonight. If you can all do us a favor, and we're not looking to have people clapping, cheering, or the other way around when people are giving testimony. So if you can try to refrain from that, that would be very much appreciated. We're here to listen to what everyone has to say. The other thing I want to mention is this is an application for an interpretation of the code. It gets a little bit confusing because these kinds of applications, because the applicant is not asking for variance relief from the code from us. Okay? The applicant's primary application is the subdivision application that is before the planning board. And some of you may have feelings about the subdivision application, and we certainly appreciate that, and you can tell us anything you like. But we're not here, and nor can we address in any way the subdivision application because that's before a different board. We are focused tonight on an interpretation of a section of the town zoning code. And that's what we're primarily going to be focused on. So if you can, to the best of your ability, focus your comments on the interpretation, which is what we're dealing with tonight, I think that probably would be helpful. And the other thing I want to mention is, my guess is some of you may have different things you want to tell us. I'm hoping that it won't be too repetitive in terms of what people are going to say, but look, you can tell us anything you want, and we're here to listen, and that's exactly what we're going to do tonight. So with that, we will get started with the public hearing.
And I just want to add, it's also a little unusual because we don't really have an applicant. We do have a property owner, but this was referred to the board from the building department.
That's correct. So normally, we would get an interpretation that would be an appeal of the determination of the chief building inspector, but in this instance, instead, it's coming to us first for the interpretation. Okay. We'll allow people to speak, Mr. Havemeyer, but what I wanted to try to do is...
Do we fill out a card to speak or not?
Oh,
No, you line up against the wall.
You're going to line up when... Yep, after the attorneys speak, I'm going to open it up to the general public,
So we don't fill a card out?
You don't fill a card out,
Thank you.
okay.
You sign-
That just helps me spell everyone's name, so I don't have to ask everyone how to spell their names. That's what the signing sheet was for.
Yes, it's for Candace, okay.
Let's have
Okay.
the property owner's attorney.
Yes, okay. We ready to get started, Mr. Bruin?
Good evening, board members. Wayne Bruin, O'Shea Marcinsigan Bruin, Southampton, New York, on behalf of DLV Quag LLC and its affiliates, who are the landowner that are the subject of this application and the interpretation by the building inspector and the planning board. We appear before you. What we'd like to do, we understand everybody wants to speak. I'd like to summarize a number of facts and points of law that are found in our memorandum of law, which I've submitted for the record. You all have a copy. In addition, we have our environmental planning consultant who's done a report that is also this document, which has also been submitted. I believe you all have a copy in front of you as well. I don't intend to go line by line. I try to keep your attention, and I will try to summarize those points. So Mr. Voorhees, I'd like to ask him to follow and give a summary of what his report is, and we also have my co-counsels, Stephen Barshoff is also here to summarize a couple other points of law. So with that said, again, we're here on behalf of the landowner, the true and only party of real interest in this application and the interpretation. We're here as both a matter of fact and law to present our case that the contemplated golf course recreational amenity of the proposed Lewis Road PRD, PRD stands for Planned Residential Development, is an accessory use and not a second principal use. This matter, as both the chairman and your counsel have indicated, this matter is before the ZBA because the planning board asked the question of the town building inspector, who in the first instance recused himself, and his assistant then referred the question to this board. Interestingly, we note we haven't seen anything other than the planning board report that explains any part of this question or otherwise. I don't think the building inspectors provided you with any memo or any other points as to this interpretation. That being said, again, just to reiterate what the chairman and council said, this matters before the ZBA, not as a request for a variance or any other approval, nor is there any appeal truly in play here. Rather, the planning board has requested an interpretation as to whether the proposed recreational golf course amenity is a permitted accessory use. I want to point out, again, as you stated, this is not a case to determine whether a golf course or our planned residential subdivision is a good or a bad use, or is a good or a bad design, or whether they have environmental impacts or not. These matters are going to be decided by the planning board. But rather, this is a very narrow interpretation of the zoning code, one that is primarily an issue of law and fact for this board to decide. So, where did we start? I've been involved personally with the development of this particular property in East Quogue since 2005. A variety of subdivision applications, including a planned residential development, was initially started in 2005. We find ourselves here today with an application that was submitted last August. It's a 118 unit planned residential development as depicted on the plan here that you see. We submitted this application, and the first step in the planning process is a pre-application. The planning board held public hearings and then thereafter adopted a lengthy pre-application report. A copy of that report, I believe, was forwarded you by the building inspector. We've provided a copy in our memo and in our documents. We've also provided, there's a detailed discussion in both the planning board's report and our submissions as to the statement of facts that are behind this application and any particular details. I'm not here to take you through and show you where lots are or whatnot tonight, but we are able and willing to do that if that's necessary for the board. I want to note also that this is a plan that was submitted at the pre-application stage, commonly known as the conceptual stage of the planning board. There's two further steps at the planning board, including detailed engineering. There's expectations both by the planning board and my client that there'll be detailed engineering and design modifications that will occur and probably make this a better plan for all involved. But what isn't changed are the details of the ownership and the operation of the golf course use and how the development of the property will take place residentially. All of the projects propose recreational amenities, which are detailed as many that were all stated in the original application and found acceptable by the planning board. They all include and all of these, including the golf course, as well as any community clubhouse, all of them will remain private. That is, they'll be deed restricted for use solely by the project homeowners and their guests. No members of the public would be allowed to use any of the project's recreational amenities, including the golf course and the clubhouses. That's pretty significant. The project's deed restrictions and covenants would, and I want to emphasize these, I'm going to read them carefully, grant only to the project homeowners and their guests the private and exclusive use of the project's recreational amenities, including the golf course and the clubhouse. The covenants would prohibit the creation or establishment of a membership club of any kind, allowing the use of the golf course, the clubhouse, or any of the project's other recreational amenities, unless such membership club is strictly limited to the project and the lot homeowners. And further, it would prohibit any amendment to these deed restrictions and covenants, as commonly is found in a homeowners association, but further, because it's a project with the town, it would prevent the modification of the foregoing provisions without the written consent of the local governmental legislative body, for example, the town board, whose consent would be authorized and be withheld by any reason or no reason. So that's a significant thing going forward to remember. Our memorandum of law as to this narrow issue sets forth a detailed legal analysis that has been long established in the state of New York. This board has applied it in several instances and many times. What is a customary and accessory use? So the question, the narrow question before us is to determine whether such a private golf course as a recreational amenity is accessory to the 118 residential subdivision. The place of beginning for the analysis this board must go through is the zoning code. In our zoning code, chapter 330, as you know, if you haven't looked, neither specifically lists a private golf course recreational amenity as an accessory use to a residential subdivision, nor does it prohibit it. And as you know, the zoning code does not have a definition of a principal use, but it does state that you can only have one principal use per lot. We understand that, and that was part of the question of the planning board. Is this a second principal use, or is this a customary accessory use, a permitted customary accessory use? We're located in the CR 200 residential zoning district. A planned residential development is a listed permitted use in the CR 200 zoning district. And a customary accessory structure and/or use is allowed except as prohibited in Chapter 330. That's what the table use regulations state. As you know, a 18-hole private golf course recreational amenity is not specifically listed as a permitted use in the code, on the table use regulations or otherwise, and it would only be allowed if it is a permitted accessory use. And there's nothing in the table use regulations or anywhere else in the code that prohibits a golf course as an accessory use. And that's important as well. So what does the code define an accessory use as? So in section 335, it states an accessory use is a subordinate use customarily incidental to the main or principal use. Now, I want to just point out, you shouldn't take any, one element that we need to dispose of at the beginning here is that you shouldn't take any negative inference that the code doesn't list a golf course as a permitted use. As you know, the town code expressly authorizes accessory uses which are not enumerated so long as they are customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal use. This board has ruled on that subject. Notably, you rejected the argument that unless an accessory use is specifically permitted, it is deemed prohibited. You rejected that. Rather, the ZBA found that under Chapter 330, specifically 330.10, customary accessory structures and/or their uses are permitted in all residential districts unless they are expressly prohibited under Chapter 330. And I pointed out to you, 330 does not expressly
Where are you
prohibit a
reading
golf
from?
course.
Where's that from?
In my memo,
No, but where, you said this board
I
has found this?
will tell you that right now.
Okay.
In the matter of Sagaponack Homeowners Association, a decision this board made on January 7th, 1999, you specifically stated that in that decision. And as you know, that decision went all the way to the second department, appellate division, and was upheld. Your decision was upheld.
That was as it related to what? Agricultural housing? What was that?
It was, if you recall, that was the rented property.
Okay.
And the rented property had a number of litigation. It was the size of the house, but another element was the size and the use of various accessory structures.
Okay.
And this board ruled, specific part of your ruling was about the use and the size and whether or not those structures were customary accessory structures.
And that was based on the code as it was at that time?
Code hasn't changed as far as the definition.
That's what I was going to ask.
Correct.
Has there been any changes to that?
To the definition of
these
accessory
sections?
use? Absolutely not.
Okay.
So the question before the ZBA is whether the proposed golf course recreational amenity meets this definition as a customary accessory use. So, as we noted, and this is what the cases say, is in absence of this express prohibition in the town code, the town code contains the provision that is found literally throughout the state of New York, as well as the United States, that accessory uses are permitted which are both customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal use. Our memorandum of law will take you through a number of cases and how that's interpreted, and Steve might highlight some of that, but just for basics, customarily incidental means that the accessory use is incident to the principal use. that there is a functional interconnection or similar association between the accessory and principal use, and that the accessory and principal uses have been developed with one another in enough instances for a long enough period of time to be deemed customary. Subordinate means that the accessory use does not stand alone as its own principal use and is subordinate to the principal use in scale and intensity. And again, our memo of law will take you through that, and Steve will highlight a little bit of that. But in doing your analysis, it's important to know, right, also from the get-go, that the New York zoning law, when it comes to your interpretations, you know they have to be narrowly and strictly interpreted, and that any ambiguity in the law is to be decided in favor of the landowner. That's important. And if there's any doubt as to whether a particular use is allowed as an accessory use under the applicable zoning, such doubt is required by law to be resolved in favor of the property owner and in favor of the free use of the property. That is the law of the state of New York. With respect to the inquiry that's in front of you, the cases in New York instruct you that you have the interpretation that you must analyze and undertake is one that is strictly fact-driven. The first set of facts that are characteristics of a proposed private golf course recreational amenity are the characteristics of the golf course and the associated deed restrictions which define how and whom the recreational amenity can be used. Second set of facts that is important to is the information to be gathered from other golf course developments in the town, elsewhere in Suffolk County, throughout New York, elsewhere in the United States, and even in the world if necessary, to establish whether golf courses are customarily developed as an incident to residential development. The final set of facts is a correlation of the size and scale of golf courses to residential development to confirm whether a private golf course would be subordinate to the 118 home residential subdivision on the 591 acres that's involved. To help us in doing that, the courts have found that relying on specialists in land use areas, attorneys, and other matters, it's important to get that information. We asked our environmental planning consultant to undertake that study. And we provided you with that study, and I will have Mr. Voorhees summarize his reports and what his findings that relate to the standards that I just expressed. I just want to point out, lastly, this board is well aware that in the event anybody attempts to argue that the golf course cannot be implemented as we've represented, both before the planning board and again tonight in our papers, that no such allegation of faults and not based on any evidence, that the ZBA is precluded from speculating or assuming that my client will undertake a use that's contrary to the law. You made the same finding in what case? The Renard case, the Sagaponack Homeowners Association case, which again was upheld by the second department. There's also a case in East Hampton that went all the way to the second department, the Cam Hampton case, that specifically noted that. The courts basically have indicated that the neighbor's speculative claims that a residence was destined for use other than was specifically rejected. You can't speculate that we'll use it for something else, that will have a scam and any kind of operation or otherwise. It is as we represent. What I'd like to do at this point is ask Chick Voorhees to briefly go through and summarize his report and highlight the findings that go to these two-part tests that you have to deal with, and then Steve Barshoff will summarize those elements as well. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. We were here 45 minutes early, and I'd love to speak after council, and Actually, Dick Amber was signed up first on the list, and Father
This is part of our
Lisa LaFleur,
presentation.
But you had mentioned that Wayne should go first. I want to give Wayne that courtesy. I didn't want to be opposed to the chair, but I would like to go second if possible.
She can go second after our presentation.
Yeah, you can't, okay. Yeah, we can't. Carolyn, if you can go to the microphone, and maybe repeat that, because it isn't, when people speak in the audience, it doesn't get recorded.
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope you board members are well. I was here 45 minutes early with my colleagues. Dick Amper was to be the first speaker, Bob DeLuca, Lisa LaCory, and then myself. But I know the chair called up Wayne first. I didn't want to contradict him, but I would like to go second, having been here 45 minutes early, lawyer to lawyer, and then take it from there if possible. If not, I will defer to the board.
Okay, what do you think?
We let the presentation proceed first, and then you can go after Mr. Bruin finishes his presentation.
If that's how the board would like it, I will respect
Yep.
that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Good evening, members of the board.
Yep, I think I have to
Town
swear you in.
representatives.
if
You
you're
do, yes.
An attorney, so you can state your name and address, please.
My name is Charles Voorhees, nickname is Chick. Address is 572 Walt Whitman Road in Melville, business address for Nelson Pope and Voorhees.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, town representatives. My name is Chick Voorhees, and I am with the firm Nelson Pope and Voorhees. I did just want to clarify that I'm sandwiched between two attorneys, and I may be a little bit over 3 minutes, but I can be very, very brief.
If you can do what you can to be brief, we would very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Because we have a full room tonight.
Very good. Just very briefly, my qualifications. I am a certified environmental professional and a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. Attachment A of the report that you have before you has my full credentials. I've been practicing on Long Island for 40 years and have represented many municipalities, including many zoning boards of appeals as a municipal consulting representative, as well as private applicants. I was asked to address the referral by the planning board to this board regarding if a golf course is a customary and accessory use to the proposed subdivision. The report goes into this in detail, and we provide 15 reasons supporting a finding that the golf course is indeed customarily incidental and subordinate to residential development and use. Just an overview, you'll see from the table of contents, we provide an introduction and the purpose of the report. We define examples of golf course communities in Section 2 and go into a very detailed inventory that I'll just briefly summarize. We talk about the proposed project as Wayne has outlined it. We define and classify accessory and primary uses based on a planning practitioner's standpoint. And we identify also other private recreational amenities that are not unlike a proposed golf course and how those have been evaluated by the town. And then we provide the summary of our findings, which, as I said, include those 15 points, which you will see in our report in Section 6. I'll just add that a major aspect of the report was to present examples of residential communities with golf as an incidental use to the residential use. And you'll find, as I said, in Section 2 that we cited thousands of examples across Southampton, Suffolk County, New York State, and throughout the United States overall. This confirmed what we expected. It's really a no-brainer in this case. The numbers are staggering in terms of the types of examples that we have cited. And one reference indicated that there are roughly 16,000 golf courses across the country, or were in approximately 2009, of which 3,200, in excess of that, were golf course communities. And we talk about the value that that adds as an amenity, which, as we have indicated, is accessory, it's customary, and it's subordinate. Those examples cited that they were associated with real property development, in other words, residential development. We also started a more detailed inventory, as you'll see in the report, and left off at nearly 500 examples where we compiled more detailed information from a thorough search of websites and geographic mapping and various sources. And of those 500 examples, 50 are managed by HOAs. But what we found was we couldn't be exhaustive. We know that the numbers are thousands, where we left off at about 500. But the numbers were staggering, and it is very well established that these residential communities are enhanced by a golf course amenity that is subordinate. I believe our report and the 15 summary points provided in Section 6 is very compelling, if not conclusive, in supporting the finding that a golf course is a customary and incidental use to a residential community. I told you I would be brief. The rest is in my report, and I thank you for your attention. I'm here if there are any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Stephen Barsha, Brazil, and it is a pleasure to be here before you tonight.
And Stephen, unless you're an attorney, I have to swear you in as well.
I've been an attorney for 38 years.
Then I guess I don't have to swear you
You
in.
don't have to swear me in.
Okay.
All right, my job is to connect the dots for you, and I intend to do that as quickly as I possibly can. We all know what the test is. It's in your code. I'm sure you've dealt with this many times, customarily, incidental, and subordinate. So let's break this apart into the pieces. Customary. In Mr. Voorhees' report, you're going to see examples from across New York, in the United States, hundreds and hundreds of golf communities. You can look it up in Wikipedia. There's an entry for golf communities. Golf communities have been around in this country for 100 years. There's a case, I practiced law in New Mexico, lived in New Mexico for 8 years, in 1961, which is like the Pleistocene era in New Mexico, before development occurred. They discussed there the fact that there was an interconnection between golf courses and residential development that was synergistic, that the golf course development enhanced the residential enhanced the golf course. They were hand in glove. This is not something that takes a rocket scientist to figure out. It is obvious, and it is common across the United States. Mr. Voorhees' report, I'm glad they gave up, because otherwise you'd have a report twice as thick of the number of golf course communities that are out there. And it's not just in the United States, it's around the world. Now, the cases that we cite in the memorandum of law make a particular point of stating that it is critical to look at what is common by examining examples of the similar kinds of uses that occur, not just locally, but across the country. So there was one case where there was an allegation that a convenience store was not part of a gas station, and there were 55,000 of these provided in terms of association information to show the board that, yes, this is common. It's common across the country. You have the analog here. Golf course communities are common. The question about whether or not they are subordinate is an interesting question, and I want to help you connect the dots here by saying, first of all, the covenants, the reason why they are significant and the reason why private use is significant is because the intensity of this use is no different than a swimming pool, a tennis court, anything that is open to the members of the community alone defines what its intensity of use is. Doesn't matter if it's a swimming pool, it's a marina, it's a pickleball court, whatever, basketball court. If it's limited to the owners of the lots, of the homes, and their guests, then that defines what the intensity is. In terms of size and scale, this is a 600-acre parcel of property. You're talking about a golf course that's going to occupy about 16% of the land. It doesn't dominate in terms of size. It cannot dominate in terms of intensity.
So how many acres is proposed for the golf course?
About 91 acres? Yeah, 91 acres. So what you have here is something that is set up in order to assure this board and anybody else who's looking at this that this functions like any other recreational amenity. Okay, you haven't had one in Southampton. That's my understanding. This would be the first 18-hole accessory golf course in Southampton. Well, there's always a first time to consider everything, and so now it's in front of you. The fact that it is first does not matter. The fact is that you typically look at analogous uses, and you can find them in Southampton. There are, I believe in Mr. Voorhees' report, 30 separate residential developments in which there's a golf hole or some other type of golf facility or use that are on single-family homes. Some single-family homes even have 2 or 3 holes. There are smaller developments, which we reference in our analysis and in his report, which also have golf course associated with it. So you may not have had 18 holes, but you sure have had plenty of golf and plenty of residential communities. The point to be made to you, and this is why I want to go back to the point that was made earlier about your role as a ZBA in making an interpretation. It's critical to understand what free use of property and favoring free use of property means. It means that those who are here tonight, with all due respect to them, who are coming before you, they must demonstrate that there is no possibility that this is an accessory use. If there is a doubt, the doubt must be resolved in favor of the free use of property and that this is an accessory use. I submit to you, there can be no doubt. There can be no doubt because hundreds of golf course communities don't lie. The intensity of the use as limited by the covenants does not lie. The fact is that all of these factors bring you to not just a doubted conclusion, an absolute conclusion that this use is customary, it is incidental, connection is obvious, and it is subordinate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wayne, are you finished with your presentation?
That's it.
Okay.
Well,
Carol?
do you want to ask them questions, or you want to wait till the end? How do you want?
I think we're
Wait till
going
the
to
end?
wait for a little bit, as long as you're all going to stay here. I think you probably are. Leave it. Okay, Carolyn?
You want to put that up, Carolyn? I have one of these things, or no?
Sure. Would you give me that? I don't want to show my technical prowess in front of the board, which is lacking. Towards the board, please. You'd be so kind.
You guys see that?
Yep.
Good evening, members of the esteemed zoning board. It's a pleasure to be here. Carolyn Zank, attorney at law, former councilwoman of the great town of Southampton, and I represent an organization called CLEAN, Citizens for Clean Drinking Water, Clean Air, and Clean Bays, and Ron Cass is also my client. I'd like to emphasize to you the importance of this decision. The critical question before you will affect the drinking water quality for the entire town for all time to come. It would radically undermine landmark legislation known as the 5-acre residential zone, passed in 1983, which covered 26,000 acres in the town of Southampton and the Aquifer Protection Overlay District. Indeed, it is possibly the single most important decision you will make in your careers. Why does it matter? What is the purpose of these zones, the 5-acre residential zone and the Aquifer Protection Overlay District? By the way, there's very few zones in the state of New York that are based on science. A special study was done at Spinney Road, right here, which supports the 5-acre zone, which covers 1/3 of this town, by Cornell University. The intent of the two zones was to ensure that clean, non-degraded water flowed from the highest topography in the town, which is the hilly area known as the moraine. That's the forest of the Pine Barrens, down to public and private wells. And I will point out, this application, the golf course with its toxins and pesticides, is upwater, if you will, from a public well at Spinney Road, which supplies 180 million gallons of water at last count to the public. We think that water should be clean water, not degraded water. The 5-acre zone was intended to be a single family zone with only one house for every 5 acres and only one septic system. The overlay district was intended to severely restrict fertilized vegetation, exactly like the ones found on the golf courses. The whole point of the zone is to limit fertilized turf, so you don't get the pollutants that come with fertilized turf. I would never, in my wildest imagining, think a golf course would be going at the top of the water hill. Given the importance of the decision before you, we ask that all zoning board members study all submissions, since it will affect 26,000 acres of the town. And I do note that I have some esteemed Legal Eagle colleagues on the board, and I'm hoping they're going to help. I want to point out that the issue presented to you is dishonest and has been answered numerous times in the negative. What was the question posed to you? Is the applicant's proposed 18-hole golf course available only to the owners of the subdivision parcels and not to the public at large, customary accessory by the way, I always thought a custom was something that happened a lot before, not like it's the first time, to the 118-home residential subdivision located on 591 acres, or does said golf course, and this is the rub, together with the maintenance and operating buildings and structures, what could those be, that accompany said golf course constitute a second principal use. With respect to custom, Clean had put in a Freedom of Information request on January 26, 2018, and we posed the following question to the planning staff of this town. I hereby request to inspect and or receive copies of the following records. Any golf course approval in the 5-acre zone without a change of zone to planned development district or to quasi-public service use district. The planning staff went to work, scoured the records. They found nothing. They answered, no such planning files. I have that FOIL here, and I talked to the planner, and they told me they searched the records, and there was nothing in the 5-acre zone, not everything else the developers are talking about, or other states, in the 5-acre zone in this town, there is nothing since 1983 when the zone came into effect. Almost 2 generations, by the way. I'm going to submit this to the record. The planning staff had recommended that the town council answer the question in writing. I called the town attorney, asked him for this in writing. I never got it in writing. I followed up twice. Because it'd be pretty damning to show that in this town, whenever interpretation came before the planning board, they said no. Again, not one golf course in the 5-acre residential zone. By the way, it is a commercial use under the SIC codes of New York State, not a residential use.
You asked for applications though, right? You asked for if there are already pending or approved applications for golf courses?
Yeah, I talked to the planner, and it's any golf course approval.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Anything ever approved.
okay, but that doesn't necessarily mean they said no. It either wasn't applied for.
No, they said no.
They said nothing
No.
had been approved.
No,
Nothing had been
nothing's
submitted
ever
and
been-
denied?
Nothing has ever been approved in the 5-acre residential zone. No golf course has ever been approved in the 5-acre residential zone. Other things are showing up around town,
Right.
but not in the 5-acre zone.
But I guess my question is, how many have been applied for?
I would have to have the planners look that up. I can only tell you that they've never been permitted. No one was ever confused before. Suddenly they're confused 2 generations later. Why is the question presented to you dishonest? The question does not inform you that the golf course proposed is 90-plus acres. It's not like a putting green. The question before you does not inform you that a 10 unit in the planning staff, multifamily building that could house 10 separate families, a whole tribe, if you will, is part of the application, even though the planning staff report admits this. This is critical. There's a section here in the question presented to you that says associated structures. They don't tell you that one of the associated structure is a 10-plex golf club. And that's prohibited in the 5-acre residential zone. You can't even have a duplex or multiplex.
Well, that's one of the questions I think I have for them later. What are the associated structures? What are the other accessory structures? How many are there? How big are
Well,
they?
I'm glad you asked that. Because this is a pre-app. And mysteriously, the action that was studied before the town board for 4 years, before it came to you, is this action, which is shows
That's a
that
different application. The application for the town board is separate from what's before the
the
planning.
point is this planning staff, the town board did an environmental impact statement on an action. The planning staff says, hey, the action hasn't really changed except, gee, this has become a private golf course. So I'm submitting this to the record because the big elephant in the room is like this huge, gigantic clubhouse with a spa, underground parking, 10 families, etc. That is the action under secret, which will likely sneak back in once this board, if this board should give its approval.
Okay,
Suddenly this will-
but Carolyn, we're going to ask the question
Yes.
the attorney, the applicant, as to what their intent is.
Exactly. Well, this is pre-preliminary, and right now the action under secret, unless you require a new impact statement for an action, the action holds.
This is a type 2. This is an interpretation. So we're not modifying SEPA. We're not asking for any environmental,
It's an end run around a 4-year process before the town board.
not the issue before this board. This is an interpretation.
Well, it allows, that's your opinion, Counselor, I respect that. Since there has been no environmental impact statement, it is fair to assume that the action remains essentially the same. And as I say, the planning staff report on this application, not the old one, this application admits that there is a 10-plex clubhouse that somehow wasn't mentioned by Wayne Bruin. This is a terrible precedent. If the board was to approve this, imagine that every homeowner could put such a multifamily clubhouse structure behind his home, an absurd result. In this case, when it was proposed, it was 4.3 acres of clubhouse use. 4.3 acres. 4.25, let me, I stand corrected. Not to mention, this question has been answered no again and again and again. By who? The planning board, the town board, and even the developer. That sounds shocking. How did the planning board answer no? Well, gee, when the application came up before the planning board as a residential cluster without the golf course, the planning board had jurisdiction. But when the developer wanted to do a multi-use, which is the question for you, structure, with the clubhouse, with the golf course, with the housing, suddenly the planning board said, it is our legal determination, this is out of our jurisdiction. This has to go over to the town board. My God, it needs to change of zone. Planned Development District. Planning board already knew. Suddenly the planning board has developed amnesia. You know, that's one. Now, it gets to the town board. The town board also decides, gee, it needs to change the zone. How do we know that? Because the town board does a positive declaration on an action. What is the action? The action is residential, single family, a golf course use, not allowed by the code, a clubhouse with 10 units in it. So they know a zone change is needed. Do they say, gee, this is an accessory structure, we can send it back to your planning board? No. They make the legal determination, which they subject the developer to, by the way. You have got to have a change of zone, PDD.
Plan before the town board is a public golf course, right?
It's public. You still have your clubhouse.
Sure.
Okay. Now, did the developers know? I state for the record, the developers also knew change of zone was required. How do we know? Because the developers, with all their consultants who are very smart, they don't say to the town board suddenly, gee, darn it, we don't need this change of zone. This is an accessory use. What do? They go out and they subject this community to 4 years. 4 years where we've had to get people out again and again. 4 years to review under the premise that you must have a change of zone, planned development district, a discredited zone, considered so bad by the town board, they repealed the whole thing. Do you think, I don't know what they paid for that, but that must be several $100,000. Do you think in your wildest imaginings, before you submit yourself to the process, if you think it's an accessory use, do you really think that you're going to go through that? No, they knew they needed the change of zone. And I don't know what's going on in this town, because the building inspector got up at the hearings as a citizen. That's why he's recused himself from this decision, Mike Benacasa. What does he say? Gee, you can't get this unless you have a change of zone. And so now he's recused himself. Not one speaker, and I heard hundreds of them, not one speaker ever said, gee, you could squeeze like a 10-plex clubhouse and a 90-acre golf course into the accessory use provisions, which are usually like tonight. I have to laugh when I think what's before you and how you're being duped. I have to laugh when I hear the testimony, you need a 4.5-foot variance. And the board's an hour or something, you know? All the time you're asked for these things. And yet, on 26,000 acres of this town, suddenly there's going to be a bait and switch move with a secret impact statement, and we already know a clubhouse is in there. This board should be outraged that the question posed to you didn't tell you that there was a 10-plex clubhouse in this and just said, associated structures. The town code itself answers no as well. Where does one find, how did one get a multiple use in this town? How does one get it? This is Sabonic. Sabonic got it through the PDD legislation.
Yeah, we just want to make sure we're getting you on the tape. You've got to
Okay.
on the microphone.
Sabonic.
You don't have to be right up against it, but just want to get every word, that's all.
You're a fine chairman, Mr. Grossman. Sabonic had to get a PDD. And by the way, I have to laugh too. This is a permitted use, not even a special exception. mini golf courses are, by the way, special exception. And there's 10 pages on Sabonic Golf Course with conditions and procedures, because it's so critical that you better follow these 10 pages. You have just, like, they're arguing to you that it's like a P in the zoning code, or just, boop, accessory use. It's embarrassing, frankly. It's embarrassing for this town that this is even before the zoning board. I am embarrassed for this town. When you look at the New York State SIC codes, which is the standard industrial code classification, golf course is a 79. That's a business use, according to New York State. We do use the SIC codes in Southampton. They're listed in the table of use. And the SIC code is specifically amusement and recreational services. It is not found on the table of residence district use at all. I do have a legal memo which I'll give to you, which goes through all this in more detail. I'm just going to do a general brush. When you look at the table of use in Southampton Town for the 5-acre zone, the only business uses are allowed are agriculture, because we have a long history of agriculture in the town and protecting it. So you have horticulture and agriculture and greenhouses and the like, which, by the way, isn't a big problem in the 5-acre zone anyway, because the soil type is Carver Plymouth usually. The pollutants go right down into the aquifer. The code expressly states, right on the top, all unlisted uses are prohibited in all districts. If you don't find it, according to the code in plain language, the use is prohibited. On the residential code, on the residential table of use, golf course use is not listed. It's prohibited. Golf course clubhouse is not listed. Prohibited. Duplex houses, very important. Nice clean X. No, you can't have more than a single family in the 5-acre zone. Wow, why is suddenly a duplex being entertained? Multifamily dwellings are expressly prohibited. X. And golf courses are simply not listed among the accessory uses for residents. I don't know about you, but customary, again, means custom. You're doing it all the time in Southampton Town. Yes, there's some golf courses elsewhere, not in the 5-acre zone, not customary. Sorry, it is 90 acres after all. And a 90-acre golf course with 4.25 acres of clubhouse area is certainly not a customary accessory like a family tennis court or a swimming pool. The question is also easily answered by the business district's table of use. Private golf courses is not listed, and it says all uses not listed are prohibited, therefore it's prohibited. Public golf course, not listed, prohibited. Golf course clubhouse, not listed, they're prohibited. Now it's interesting, did the drafters forget about golf? Because we know, the lawyers on the board know that the inclusion of one is to the exclusion of the other. And if someone can remember the Latin phrase, I'd appreciate it. There you go. Thank you from my colleague, opponent, whatever we want to call it. So, they didn't forget it. What did they allow, not on the residence table of use, but on the business table of use? One golf course use. What is it? Mini golf. That's it. What's interesting about mini golf, it was considered so commercial, so business-like, that it isn't even allowed in 6 of the 8 business zones. It's only allowed in 2. Now, what's really interesting is it allowed as a permitted use, like the developer just says, permitted? No, it's not a permitted use. It's by special exception. In other words, it's considered so intense that you need special conditions on it. The mini golf use also very, very critical. It's limited to how many acres? Anybody know what mini golf is limited to? 1 acre.
Just tell us.
I'll tell you. Good to think about, though. So mini golf is limited to 1 acre by special exception because it's so intense, and yet they're just asking for this as a permitted use. It's ridiculous. So mini golf is allowed in the highway and motel business zones, which are the more intense zones. Clearly, the draft of the code did not intend to allow 90-acre golf course use as a permitted use with no restrictions whatsoever, or as an accessory use. In conclusion, this multi-use proposal is absolutely prohibited as an unambiguous matter of law. As I told you, the planning board already made the determination It's illegal, go to the town board. The town board made the determination. You need an impact statement. The developer made the determination. We need to change the zone. And just to summarize, on the 5-acre zone, getting back to why it all matters, why does it all matter? You see this is Sabonic, and you see the fellow there, he's wearing a biohazard suit, and he's wearing a face mask, and he's spreading pesticides on Sabonic Golf Course. The whole idea of the 5-acre zone, with respect to the water hill in this town, where all the water drains off into all the public and the private wells, the purpose of the zone, keep it forested, have hardly any septic systems, have hardly any lawns. The drafters of the code, forgive me while I step away, they did not intend the pesticides to come off that hill and pollute the Spinney Road wells, 180 million gallons I mentioned earlier. They did not intend that. Now, golf course is clean drinking water, which the developer has been contending for 4 years, and I have to laugh every time I hear it. Because we had an independent expert check. There's 10 highly toxic pesticides, there's carcinogens that are proposed, and there's acute neurotoxins, among others. It's 42 different pesticides, and I will submit into the record the Dr. Goldberg report. If these things cleaned up the drinking water, they would be around all of New York State's reservoirs, and they're not. So I don't really know, why we're here one way. It seems like an end run to me. The public said no. The town board voted no. They've repealed the whole zone because it's so bad. And vote no. Thank you. I'm going to submit myself to the record. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, who would like to go next? Before you get started, you can just, you actually give them to our attorney and she'll pass them over?
Yes.
However you want to do it.
There you go.
Probably be easiest.
Thank you. We have 7, so
Okay.
both sharing.
They're going to have to.
Okay, just have to swear you in. If you can state your name and address for the record,
The
please.
original?
My name is Bob DeLuca. My address is 175 The Crossway, East Marion, New York.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So help me God.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the ZBA. My name is Bob DeLuca, and I've served as the president of Group for the East End since 1992. For the record, the group is a not-for-profit conservation advocacy organization looking at the planning and zoning and natural resources issues facing the East End.
1 second. Carolyn, can you just submit 2 more when you get, I know you said because we need one original, so just when you have them.
Is this
This is Helen's.
Oh.
This is my Exhibit A.
Okay.
This is the
Yes.
FOIL request.
Does everybody have one of these now then?
Well,
He's not a lawyer.
These
yeah,
two need to be
he's
copied.
not a lawyer, yeah.
Are
Okay.
we sure?
So I only have one copy.
That's okay. I'm more concerned about the memo of law.
We're now under 3-minute presentations, please.
Yeah.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Under the Constitution.
Carolyn, can I get your microphone?
Thank you. Point of order, Mr. Chairman. We did, Clean had submitted a memo to the town board, and the town board actually changed their entire procedure so that it was more fair. Because what was happening at the town board level is the applicants were speaking for an hour, and then experts like Mr. DeLuca, who sometimes represents several hundred people, were cut down to 3 minutes. So what they did at the town board level, as a result of the memo claiming it would be unconstitutional to treat our experts differently than these experts, is they gave them at least 5 minutes. So I asked that for Mr. DeLuca and for our experts, and I think it's going to be well worth it.
How many experts do you have?
We have Dick Gamper, who represents how many people there?
Carolyn, you got to get to the microphone.
Bob DeLuca,
Okay?
Dick Gamper, Lisa LaCory, and any other experts in the audience I need to know about? That's it, sir.
Okay. 5 minutes each?
It's up to the board, but I'd just like to state for the record, I'm certain it's not unconstitutional.
No, I agree with that, and Mr. Voorhees did it in 3 minutes, so.
Yeah. If you can try to get as close to 3 minutes as possible, we would appreciate it.
I think I can do
Well,
that.
the board agreed.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members of the ZBA, Bob DeLuca, Group for the East End. For the record, I hold a BS in Environmental Science and MS in Environmental Science. I've served as an assistant professor of environmental studies at Long Island University for more than 15 years and have worked as a senior environmental analyst at the Suffolk County Office of Ecology for nearly a decade. My entire career has been devoted to the evaluation of planning and zoning and environmental impacts associated with land use applications, specifically on eastern Long Island. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening, but at the outset, I do have to say I'm puzzled, as others will mention, by the specific interpretation, the question that's come to you this evening. In the simplest terms, the ZBA has been asked by the planning board to resolve a question of whether or not an 18-hole golf course is customary and accessory to a proposed 118-unit residential development in the CR 200 zone. The problem is, before the ZBA can get to that issue, it first has to address whether the 18-hole golf course with full complement of buildings and clubhouse is in fact allowed at all in the CR 200 zone. We do not believe that it is, and we think that the code makes that very clear. In fact, we don't find any golf course of any kind allowed in the code. And I just want to stop there for a second, because for the years that I've looked at this, for 15 or 20 years, the way to do a mixed-use development in the town of Southampton was a planned development district. That was the application, and whether it was the applicant's prior application or many others, Sabonic was mentioned, that's how you did it. Now, the board found its way to eliminating that planned development district as an opportunity for applicants, and this particular planned development district was rejected by the town board. So the applicant is back and trying to have the same a similar application, and almost always presented to the planning board. And you just have to sort of realize how we got here, because I think that's important to the interpretation. The other thing I'd ask you to take a look at is the planning staff report also has, between pages 8 and 11, I think, information about how it is that the planning staff felt that you all should be doing an interpretation here. And there were two things that jumped out at me. One was that the report notes that section 292.29b of the code in the subdivision regulations speaks to specific adjuncts that would be beneficial to the subdivision process, like schools, parks, parking, fire wells, and recreation is one of them, and it deems those valuable to the town. Now, nobody's going to disagree with that, except for the fact that there's nothing in the section of the code that says any of those facilities, you can't have them if they're already prohibited by zoning. So it would be great to have a school or a fire well or whatever else it is, but just don't get it just because it's valuable. You get it because zoning allows it. And the other thing, of course, is that all of those adjuncts that are listed in that section of the code, like fire stations and parks and schools, are adjuncts in the broadest public interest. They're not attendant uses to a private resort. And I think that matters here, because if you're going to make the argument that recreation should drive the process as to why this is able to be considered under a PRD, you have to ask yourself whether or not the benefit of it is actually to the broadest members of the public. And as the applicant has said in their own application, it's now available just to the folks that are going to live there.
Right, so that issue is before the planning board.
That's 3 minutes, Chair.
Thank you.
Give him another minute.
You have another minute, Mr. Julie.
2, actually. In any case.
Well, I'm not sure if we have 4 votes for 5 minutes, so.
Okay, well, I'll do the best I can.
Whatever you can do.
Okay. Look, the bottom line is the question before you requires that first and foremost, you have to determine if the golf course and multifamily development uses ever contemplated for this property is permissible under zoning. First of all, before you can ever decide whether it's an attendant use or an accessory use. And honestly, I cannot believe that if you could find examples of something like this somewhere on the planet, that would supersede your zoning. I could drive 20 miles from here and show you god-awful zoning, and because I could find that somebody else made that mistake or did it differently, I just can't believe that the zoning board has to go with that. You have your own rules, your own codes, and as far as I know, the code is very clear. So in the end, look, I don't know how this got to you. I'm not so sure it should be here. I think it's clear. You don't get to interpret anything in the code. I don't know that there's a question, but in any case, I hope that your decision will send a message back to the planning board that basically clarifies the fact that you can't do a golf course in the CR 200 zone, and the mixed-use development that the applicant seeks and sought was available under the PDD, but it's no longer allowed in the town of Southampton. I think that's it. And I urge you with Godspeed in your work, but I think, that's really got to be the guts of it. If it can't be done in the zone, you can't have it as an accessory, you can't have it as any use. And thank you very much for your time, and I have a written submission which I'll hand up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Dick, just have to swear you in as well. You can state your name and address.
I'm Richard Emperor. I work at 547 East Main Street in Riverhead and reside at 97 Lakeside Trail in Ridge. I am Executive Director of the Long Island Pine Barren Society.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So help me God.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Amber, I'm just going to set the timer for 4 minutes, and we'll go from there.
That seems to be the compromise.
Just don't start it until I begin.
All right.
The question of whether or not the proposed 18-hole golf course is a customary and accessory use of the application of Discovery Land's 118-home subdivision, or is instead a second primary use, should not even be before the Southampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals. The threshold question that I think all of you, I mean, this is a complicated thing, and you need to get it right. The threshold question must be whether an 18-hole golf course is permitted at all in the residential zone where the Lewis Road Planned Residential Development, or PRD, is proposed. The Southampton Town Zoning Code makes it clear that such use is impermissible. So we can't wander off into the other vagaries. Even the building inspector has testified in public that this is not permissible outside of a PDD. So once you've decided that, the rest of this is over. Golf courses are already prohibited in the CR 200 zoning category, and no 18-hole golf course exists in any other PRD approved by the town. 18-hole golf courses are simply not included among the dozens of primary and accessory uses identified in this zoning category and enumerated in the town code. And I think this is important. In fact, the town's table of uses states unequivocally that all unlisted uses are prohibited in all districts. That's PRDs. That's a district. All districts prohibited. This is a much simpler question in front of you than they made it sound when we came in. If such development was permitted under the PRD zoning, why would Discovery Land have spent more than 4 years attempting to win approval under the PDD zoning? The applicant is simply trying to use you as the Zoning Board of Appeals to do an end run around the town board's disapproval of the Hills project, which is virtually identical to the newly named Lewis Road PRD. Please, don't let the applicant use the ZBA to violate the explicit provisions of the town code. If the town code says what can and can't be, and if it doesn't provide that it can be, it says it cannot be. This is simpler than everybody's making it. To find in favor of the applicant's desired proposal to construct a golf course in the CR 200 zone would effectively require the ZBA to rewrite the town zoning code, which is a legislative responsibility that is clearly outside this board's purview. As a result of these considerations, we strongly urge the ZBA to reject the question put before it and to reaffirm the unambiguous residential use restrictions for the CR 200 zone as enumerated in the town code. One last fact, since we weren't able to reach the specifics of this clubhouse. Reminds me of a tree house I had once when I was a little kid. This tree house is 155,000 square feet.
Thank you for your comments. Mrs. LaCour? Good evening. Are you an attorney? I'm not sure whether I need to swear you in.
I'm not an attorney.
You're not an attorney.
I need to swear in.
Okay, so if you can state your name and address.
For the record, my name is Lisa LaCour, 151 Middle Highway, East Hampton.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Grossman, members of the board. As you heard, my name is Lisa LaCour. I'm a certified planner with over 35 years of environmental planning experience on the east end of Long Island, including 15 years of the town of East Hampton planning director. And I worked with the town attorney on developing the use codes for East Hampton Town and for many of the East End municipalities, including Sagaponack and Shelter Island and some of the other areas. As you've already heard from some of the speakers before me, a golf course is prohibited in all residential zones. And I'm just going to drill down into your use code a little bit. I'm not going to read this, but there's 4 pages of uses that are listed in your zoning code as to what is permitted, what is special exception use, and what is prohibited. But in big capital letters on the top, it says all unlisted uses are prohibited in all districts. So if you're not one of those things, you're prohibited. It is not listed. The applicant has agreed also that it is not listed. But let me just go through. The There's 6 different classifications under residential. The first being residential uses, talking predominantly about, you can have a house, a single-family detached dwelling. You can have a planned residential development, but that's what we're really talking about, what could it include, not include. You cannot have a 2-family detached dwelling. You can't have multi-dwelling for 3 or more families. Those are prohibited. You have residential community facilities that are special exceptions. It includes a church. It includes a nursery school. A park is a permitted use, things of that like. Another category is general community facilities. And under that, a beach club nonprofit is listed as a special exception. And there's also a yacht club nonprofit that is listed, but it is prohibited in the CR 200 zone. It is a special exception in some other zones. So there are uses that are kind of similar to a golf club that are listed under the category of general community facilities, but a golf club, whether it's nonprofit, whether it's a membership club or whatever it is not listed with those other things that are similar to it. It's not listed anywhere. It's not listed under the business uses that are listed for the residential zones. None of that would include that. It's not listed under industrial uses, which are all prohibited. And then the 6th category of uses in a residential zone are called accessory uses. And well, now the applicant is saying that that's what this is. It's a customary accessory use, and pointing to the fact that there are golf club villas all over this country. But that is not talking about what is permitted in the Town of Southampton Code. As you know, there are many places, that's what we're here to interpret, whether it is customary, whether it is a permitted use as accessory use in Southampton, not whether or not they're golf club villas. We know there are thousands of them all over the country. A lot of them are going bankrupt, too, as a point. So what is a customary accessory structure? So there are some that are listed. I'm going to read the definition to you. Subordinate use, building and structure.
You have about a half minute.
Customarily incidental, located on the same lot, occupied in the main use. It shall not include any building for sleeping, cooking facilities, used for sleeping or cooking, except farm employees, farm owned by the employer. It shouldn't include an accessory apartment or bed and breakfast. There are also other guidelines, and the things that have customarily been approved have been tennis courts, pools, and pool sheds, not a golf course. More of this is submitted in writing.
Thank you for your comments.
But before we continue, do we want to take a short break before we go to the public? I thought we just need to take about a 5-minute break, and then we're going to be back on. We are back on. Who would like to come, speak to us next? Okay. I just need to swear you in. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Andrea Stilka. I live at 59 Encore Boulevard in Eastport.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I definitely do.
Okay, and now we are on the 3-minute time limit, folks.
Okay. As I'm president of the Southampton Town Civic Coalition. I've served in that capacity for the last 10 years. And on behalf of the coalition, which is an umbrella for most of the civic organizations west of the Shinnecock Canal, I ask that you deny Discovery Land's request that an 18-hole golf course be treated as an amenity under the open space law. I worked hard in 2011 to make sure that voters turned the ballot over to see the referendum requiring a supermajority to approve a PDD. That PDD proposition passed by more than 78% because the community really cares about these more intense projects. The town board denied Discovery Land's proposal to build a golf course and the 118 units, largely because of the sensitivity of the site and concern for both surface and drinking water. If anything, those concerns are even more relevant now, with every hamlet experiencing water issues. Why would Discovery have spent several years trying to persuade the town and community if they were entitled to this use in the open space law? The PDD was their one opportunity to create a private golf course in Southampton. An 18-hole golf course with a clubhouse, etc., is not an accessory use. Instead, it's a standalone use, a standalone second primary use. Discovery's documents indicate that to create the golf course, they will be removing and replacing approximately 350,000 cubic yards of soil, and changing the topography of a very large property. This is a very intense use. The creation of an 18-hole golf course is in direct contradiction to the natural resource protection goals already on the property, and it's contrary to the open space law, which was created to preserve the natural and scenic qualities of the area. Town code does not allow a private golf course, it's been discussed, in a 5-acre residential zone, and it has never been allowed in a planned residential district. Town code prohibits, as they've said, that anything that is not listed is prohibited. But lastly, to rule that an 18-hole golf course is merely a recreational amenity under existing law would set a very frightening precedent throughout the town. Could a private gun club, indoor or outdoor drag strip, a petting zoo for homeowners be allowed, and for homeowners and their guests be allowed in a PRD?
30 seconds.
What about a ski slope? For all of these reasons, I ask on behalf of the coalition, including the East Quogue Civic, the Hampton Bay Civic, West Hampton, Remsenburg, Spionk, and Eastport CAC, Spionk-Remsenburg Civic Association, the Flanders Riverside Northampton Community Association, as well as some that are outside on the other side of the Shinnecock, including Watermill CAC, Bridgehampton CAC, and the Sag Harbor Partnership, that this request be denied. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next. And whoever wants to come up, if you kind of meander towards the podium, we would greatly appreciate it. Okay.
Good evening. William.
Swear you in.
Yes, William Kearns, 117 Spinney Road, East Quogue, New York.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
What did I do to you spell your last name?
Kearns. Everyone has trouble with that. I've been against this proposal since day one for a number of reasons. And I guess I'm going to ask the existential question tonight: why are we here? Why are we here? This has been through the town board for 5 years. It's been through numerous public hearings. It was thrown out by the town board, as was the underlying law that they based their application on. That says a lot. That says a lot. You know, they came to the planning board. That didn't work. They went to the building inspector. I don't know if that worked. The assistant building inspector was supposed to render a decision. That didn't work. Now it's here. This seems to me like the ultimate end run to try to get what they want. They'll do anything they can to get their development built. A couple of things about what was said tonight. The fact that there are 16,000 golf courses in the U.S. has no bearing on anything. It's irrelevant. It's ludicrous. We're talking about a golf course in the Pine Barrens that are in imminent danger of being destroyed due to pollution that has nothing to do with these folks. These people are developers of golf course communities. They have 18 of them throughout the world, I believe. So to say this is an ancillary use is not true. It is, I believe, the primary use, not a secondary primary use. It is the primary use. That's what they do. They build golf courses with homes. Based on what they say today, too, if anyone who's got a large piece of property in the town has the right to build an ancillary, or has the right to ancillary development, anybody could build a golf course if they have enough property. So we can have a lot of golf courses developing in this town in the not-too-distant future. Finally, based on the fact that they believe that somebody with a putting green, somebody with a practice area, or somebody with a golf course that has a couple of holes is the same thing as this, I wholeheartedly disagree. This is a business entity. Liquor licenses, stores, restaurants, this is not the same thing. This is a business entity, a money-making business entity that has no place in the Pine Barrens. Thank you.
Thank you. Brett? Just have to swear you in. You can state your name and address for the record, please. Go ahead. Your name and address.
Say what you want to say.
No, first you got to tell me your name and address.
I have to hold my hand up to say my name and address? My name is Frederick Habemeyer. I live Montauk Highway, Bridgehampton.
Okay, and do you swear to tell
I swear that I live in Montauk Highway, Bridgehampton.
No, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You bet.
Okay, thank you.
We're here to talk about Discovery Land's proposal, which we've been through around and around here. It reminds me of the old argument of what came first, the chicken or the egg. Discovery Land's principal business is creating golf courses and making houses around them. But the most important thing is the golf course. And we're talking real golf courses now. The order of magnitude is very important on this. We're talking the size and the scale of the Shinnecock Golf Course, the National Golf Course, the Atlantic Golf Course out here with all the buildings and clubhouse and all the other stuff. We're not talking about some little small rinky-dink thing behind somebody's McMansion. It's a totally, totally different concept. There's no question, it's beyond any reasoning that the principal use in this particular situation is the golf course. Without the golf course, the housing development is nothing. It would be a low-income thing or something. It wouldn't be a money-making asset for an international corporation. So think about that. All the talk, and I respect these gentlemen here, I know them very well. All the talk about it's comparable to a backyard golf course that some billionaire has on a few acres of land, it's not the same. Again, the order of magnitude is so far beyond that. It's a principal use. It is the use. Without that principal use, there would be no housing development. It's that simple. So I'm not going to belabor the point. To me, it's simple, it's clear-cut, and I think that this board, your board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, has been put in a terrible place to make a decision on this because everybody else has run away from it. The town board voted it down, the planning board, and I've spoken at all the meetings on this subject, whether it's the town board hearings, the planning board hearing. Mike Benincasa, when he was at the second town board hearing in East Quogue, made it very clear that he was in favor of the PDD because of all the benefits for the community. That's a whole nother argument. The thing that we have to focus on here, and that all of you have to focus on, is what is going on. Is it the chicken or the egg? And there's absolutely no question that this is a primary use golf course situation. There's a second primary use, and that is the housing subdivision. But without the golf course, there's no housing subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening. My name is Tom Jack.
Tom, if you can state your address, please.
I reside at 139 Spinney Road in East Quogue.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay. The PDD proposed by Discovery Land was turned down by the town board back in December 2013, primarily due to the effect on the environment and water quality. Since then, things have gotten worse with private well contamination along Lewis Road. 6 decades ago, my father built the house we now live in today on Spinney Road. Back then, our house and those of our neighbors had private wells. At that time, we had the finest quality drinking water obtainable anywhere. Over time, due to increased development, we switched to town water, SCWA. The original well dug on Spinney Road is now contaminated. Over the decades, we learned that our groundwater is both finite and priceless. It is on this land that has our aquifer that Discovery Land wants to build a golf course. Further, the ZBA needs to consider that a golf course in East Quogue is neither customary by tradition nor is it an amenity when connected to a residential development. Therefore, the golf course should be turned down. Thank you.
Thank you. George? Just need to swear you in.
Yeah, I'm an attorney.
Oh, you're an attorney, then I don't have to swear you in.
I am not
I forgot.
retained by any party in this matter, though I'm available, of course, but no.
Let me just give you your full name for the
My name's George Lynch. I live at 380 Main Street in Quion.
Okay, thank you.
As an attorney, I have tried to concentrate on what you said, Mr. Chairman, about how narrow is the question before this board as distinct from what will be before the planning board, unless, of course, you all make a different decision. And in consequence, I just have a very, very narrow point to make. We are talking about and only about whether or not this golf course is an accessory incidental use, customary and accessory. And I believe that in addition to the manifest, what I'll call common sense evidence, that it is not, that it is in fact a second primary use, I want to focus on one thing that I heard here tonight. Besides Mr. Brune, there was a second attorney who spoke for the applicant. First name Stephen, I missed the last name, I apologize. I would please.
Stephen Barsha.
Mr. Barsha. Mr. Barsha cited various residential developments that have golf courses, golf developments, if you wish, around. And he said that in these cases, the golf course enhances the residential part, and the residential part enhances the golf course. Now, I can see the golf course enhancing the residential part if the only primary use is residential. But if the residential part is enhancing the golf course, that tells me that the golf course is a second primary use. In other words, it's a two-way street between the two of them. And I think that is just one more piece of evidence in addition to what I say is the vast weight of common sense evidence on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next person? Okay, just have to swear you in unless you're an attorney.
Not an attorney.
Not an attorney, okay. Please state your name and address.
My name is Dave Seeley. I live at 7 Foxborough Road in Hampton Bays.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
So we've had quite a few people from other places other than East Quogue. I'm a 43-year resident of East Quogue, and I am in support of this endeavor. For the reason that we have a pretty decent tax structure right now, but I have a feeling that if we don't have better development and more valuable development, we might have a tax structure that goes the other way, where we're paying more school taxes and things of that nature. I also represent, well, not represent, I'm sorry, I'm part of the East Quogue CAC, and in March we had developed a letter, and I'd like to submit that letter to you all tonight. The CAC basically, the East Quogue CAC was in support by a vote of 7-4 of the East Quogue, of the Lewis Road PRD, for a myriad of reasons, and we feel that the previous PDD, I'm sorry, I apologize, I have a massive migraine headache, so I'm having a little trouble. The previous PDD met all the requirements that they were supposed to and still got denied. Right on the very back part of this, there's one statement here. This East Quogue CAC also finds that the overall 118-unit subdivision with golf course conforms with the town master plan, the East Quogue land use plan, and the GIS. The proposal also complies with the requirements of the Aquifer Protection Overlay District as well as the Pine Barrens Compatible Growth Area. So I know that doesn't mean anything right here because we're talking about one specific piece of the law. And so that brings me to one other point, that they have property rights, and they can't just be subverted, not anywhere. So they own the property. They should be able to do what they want with the property within the confines of the law. And then when the Carolyn Zank, I'm sorry, Mrs. Zank, said that the regulation use table said that it was not permitted is not exactly true. Under the use, it said PRD, check mark, permitted. So this is a PRD, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that was a little bit of a back and forth. I also find that when she said also that the applicant was being untruthful when she brought the attention to the applications, that there was no applications that were approved, but we didn't know if there's any that were actually made. So I want to know if they were actually made and disapproved, but I don't think that that's the case. I think there was never any made, so it's also being a little misleading. On top of which, this is the pre-application. So if I understand it correctly, we still have to go through the application part, where they can redesign, maybe get rid of the, there was a particular piece of the building that they didn't like. take it out. We have the option at this point to take it out and make it more suitable to the area. But if they don't go past this part, then we don't even get that option. So we have two pieces of, or two applications in front of us. We have a 118 unit with golf course or 137 unit with affordable housing. Affordable housing will kill East Quogue. We already have an overburdened school. We already have overburdening school taxes. So if we get more affordable houses than we do larger, more expensive houses, there's no balance there. So we need a little bit of both. And it's proven across the whole town that this higher value dwellings help to pay the bills. And we need to desperately pay our bills in East Quogue. We're a bunch of working people who don't really need any more high taxes. I appreciate your time.
Wait, I just want to ask you, so you said the CAC is in support of this?
Yes.
Because I thought, Andrea, you said that they were not.
East Quogue CAC.
East Quogue CAC.
Andrea,
just come
no,
up and
you have to come
clarify?
up.
I just want to write
She
it
said
down.
this East Quogue Civic.
All right, I just wanted to
Well, the Civic
clarify.
is nothing more than a corporation.
Okay, but I just
And it's
wanted to
also,
clarify.
it's
just wanna
also.
make sure we're not-
Yeah, the
our
Civic's
record is
also
clear.
a political action committee because they donate to the
So
to the
CAC is in
people's,
support, and then Andrea's just going to clarify so I can
But didn't you,
fix my
excuse me,
notes.
didn't you say you live in Hampton Bays?
It's the East Quogue School District, East Quogue, it's actually East Quogue, but it's Hampton-based mailings, that's all it is.
Okay.
Like right on the border.
Right on the border, I am in East Quogue.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, no, I just wanted, I did say it's the East Quogue Civic Association.
Okay, my notes were wrong, I just wanted to get it right.
Historically, the East Quogue CAC did support, was against the project. Now, as far as I know, there were several letters,
a
not
letter in
just
support.
that one, not just that one, that was submitted to the planning board, some in support and some in opposition.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify my notes.
Yeah, I'll clarify a little more. The letter that you have before us was voted by 11 members. There's another one that was not voted on.
Okay.
The 11 members, 4 were against, 7 were for. As far as the Civic Association, they are an incorporation, and they donated a lot of money to the people who scuttled this whole thing, so.
Okay, I just,
there's
like I
that.
said, I want to make sure my notes are
And
correct.
definitely take something for your headache.
I did already, it's not helping.
Okay.
All right, thank you
Can
very
I-
much.
Thank you very much.
Can I say, ask him something?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Sir?
Ms. Burgess has a question for you.
Sure.
Do you understand that our function is not to decide, but in the best interest of the town? We have a different agenda.
absolutely.
So whether
Well,
whether
everybody else-
taxes go up, down, the school, the number.
I do know.
You know.
But you also had a bunch of people who interjected things that weren't necessarily correct either. So, you know, we have a very opinionated group of people, and I'm sure there's more opinions coming. So the fact of the matter is that it would benefit East Quogue. It would benefit us in a great deal. Now, the fact of the matter is that you do have a small
Right.
purview as far as the law is concerned. And in my opinion, property rights trump it all. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Ma'am, like to come up? Just need to swear you in unless you're an attorney.
Not an attorney.
Okay. You can state your name and address, please.
Elizabeth Jackson, 35 West Side Avenue, East Quogue, New
Okay,
York.
and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
I am actually one of the co-chairs of the CAC for East Quogue. So we did have some concerns on the letter that was sent to planning. Not that it's important because it may not be relevant to the issue, but if it doesn't have my signature on the bottom, then it was not the final letter.
There's no signatures, it's just a list of names.
So that was an original letter that was submitted without our chairperson's signatures. So
Okay.
you can look for the other one, but it's not the huge issue of today because we're talking about ZBA issue.
Well, but it's relevant.
It is relevant, but as far as, I don't have a copy because I wasn't planning
Okay.
on presenting it.
Okay.
I would just like to add, not repeating anything, that the comments, I've been listening in the lovely room next door to all of your comments. There was a comment about the 600-acre parcel and how that was plenty of room for the 91 acres of the golf course and that it would be a customary accessory use, et cetera. In looking at the different codes and things, technically the 600 acres is not contiguous. It's not all in one spot. They've bought up different parcels to preserve land to create the bigger application. So yes, they're saving other spaces and creating non-development in those areas, but that's a little different than if you have a lot and a house that then has uses on that lot for those people. Also, the all golf course, I think it has been mentioned before that clearly all golf course communities are not equal because had they had approval from the town board earlier, their original plan for the seasonal community golf course would have been a very different situation, and it would have still been a golf course community or houses with a golf course. So just to blanket everything is a little misleading in that regard. And envisioning the use of these houses as we've been told they're going to be a fourth house or a third house to these homeowners. The fact that they're coming out seasonally and limited, they're not going to be the same as grandparents living in Florida that golf 4 times out of the 7 days of the week. That's just not going to be the same use. So to say that it's a customary and it's a necessary is a little, again, concerning to me. So, thank you.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Who'd like to go next?
I'm not a lawyer.
Okay. You can state your name and address, please.
Brian Babcock, 5 Shinnecock Avenue, East Quogue.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
So in the beginning of the meeting, you started off by saying this is about code and following all the rules and regulations. And I've been sitting over there listening. It's turned into another public referendum on a PDD, unfortunately. So all I really want to say is that being it from East Quogue, I hope you vote in favor of the 118 unit, which from what I understand, according to the attorneys, lots of them, it follows the code. So I would like you to go that route. On another note, I heard someone say, why is this here? As far as I read in the paper, it just kept getting punted down the line, and it got punted to you guys. And it's unfortunate. I'm sorry you guys have to deal with it. This could have been solved a long time ago. I think the town board would have made, in my opinion, decision to go ahead with the original plan. We wouldn't be here. And what was the last thing? Oh yeah, go Yankees.
Thank you. Next. Good evening.
Good evening.
Just have to swear you in. State your name and address.
My name is Edward Wolfersdorf. I live at 2 Sarah Way, East Quogue.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. And I promise to do it in less than 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate it.
I was a building inspector here in Southampton in 1988 and continued along that route in several of the communities as a building inspector and a zoning administrator. So I do get the point between what a structure is and what the use is. And the use, I mean, a golf course to me is not a structure. It's grass, it's bent grass, it's bluegrass, it's fescues. It has nothing to do with a structure. But the use of it, to me, is very important because I own a golf green and a sand trap and everything in my backyard, and I would like not to see that become an issue of use as to having setbacks from the roads that surround my property. So if you do make it, I mean, I'm a golfer and I'm certainly probably never going to play this golf course, so I could care less, but I would like to know that when the decision is made, that it's taken into consideration that there are a lot of private greens and are some small golf courses. And in the late 80s, I believe the name was Edward Gordon, built a 6 or 9 hole golf course up on Scuttle Hole Road. And we did the inspections on his house when he was building it, and there was nothing said about the golf course. They actually cleaned up a pond that the previous owner, a farmer, had practically destroyed by dumping his barrels of old DDT and other things in that pond. So he did a good thing to the property, at least for what I could see. But there were a lot of naysayers and fear-mongers, I guess, when Ira Rennett was building his house, and I worked through that, and everybody thought it was going to be a retreat or resort or some other crazy thing, and here it was like 15 years later or something, there's nothing going on there. And probably the same thing with the Bridge Golf Course. Everybody was afraid that traffic would be bad, and it's years later, nothing ever came of it. But like I say, I would just like you to keep in mind that the use and the structure are different, and that I don't think a golf course is a structure. I would hate to have to meet setbacks for my putting green, and,
30 seconds.
you know, or anybody else. I know there's, when you go on Google Earth, you can see there's quite a few of them in Quogue, East Quogue, and in the area. So whatever you do may impact a lot of properties.
Okay, thank you for comments.
Thank you.
Who would like to go next? Okay. You also can have a seat here as well, you know, if anybody wants to.
Hi, my name is Bob Tyson. I live at 62 Bay Avenue in Hampton Bays.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Hi. First, I'd like to thank all you folks. I haven't been here in a very long time. Mr. Phillips used to run a fair board as well. And I acknowledge all the good work that this board has done over the last many, many years in making wise decisions. Certainly, this is not putting an aspiring police officer an opportunity to own a home in Southampton, okay? I want to touch a point on Mr. Bruin when he came up here originally and said that this is a very narrow question before you. Many of the former speakers had said that this is a terrible thing that you have been placed under, okay? This is a battle that has been fought and won and lost already, okay? The fact that this is coming to you is a very narrow question. And it has already been addressed. At least 3 people have indicated to you that it's not permitted in the town code. It's really that simple. You know, in other words, the question before you, is it a permitted use? Is it a permitted accessory? Is it common? And the answer to all those questions is no. And it's on several of the pages under the code 330, et cetera, where if it's not listed, and I've had a town code book in my house, I have to have number 68 in the original copies when you guys first started handing them out, and then you gave all the, and I used to get packages and packages of brown envelopes of the modifications, I'll call it, that the town would go through in terms of legislation and what they wanted to do and how they wanted the town and the villages to go forward in their development, which is inevitable, all right? And I went back to my book, and it has to be, you know, I don't know, late 80s. And I went in there and I said, so where is the golf course as a use for a private home? And it's a little unclear whether this is a private home either, all right? It's a little unclear who owns the golf course, in theory. The 118 potential guests, or the 118 potential units
30 seconds.
with potential guests. So my question to you, right back to the narrow thing. It's a very easy question, and it's a very simple answer. Is it in the code or not? That's what you're being asked. You're not being asked to re-legislate the last 4 years, and in some cases, 13 years. You're being asked, does the code offer this as a accessory use? And the answer would be no. Because we've all, you know, you guys have been through the book. It's not there.
Okay. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you. Next. Okay. Good
My
evening.
name is Mike Marino. I live in East Quogue, Bayberry Lane.
Okay. What number Bayberry Lane?
9.
9. Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Thank you.
I've heard a couple of people come up and say they're sorry that you guys got this, you know, decision to make. Are you guys all residents of the town, Southampton?
You bet. Yeah. You have to be.
Okay. Well, then put this thing to bed already. That's it.
Okay. Thank you so much. Next, who else would like to speak? Anyone else?
I am not an attorney.
Okay, Larry, so I have to swear you in. If you can state your name and address.
Larry Oxman, 17 Club Lane, Remsenburg, New York.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Okay. Just as I live in Remsenburg. I'm a commercial a real estate broker. I've been selling real estate out here for 40 years. I also represent some of the larger property owners in East Quogue, just so that you know. So, I'm here just to address the question that the public hearing is about, and it's pretty simple, whether this is an accessory use or secondary or another primary use. So, as a broker, people come to me all the time and they want to do something with their property. So, what would I do? I go look at the code. They want to do a pizzeria. They want to put up a house. I'll go through the code. So, going through the code, first thing you notice is it's in the CR 200 zone, and you have to look at what's permitted. Residential is permitted. What it also is another under permitted is accessory uses. So I might actually tend to disagree when they're saying that it's not listed. It is listed, but under accessory use. Then you have to kind of say, well, what's an accessory use? First of all, you have to understand what a use is. A use could be land. A use could be a structure. But land is definitely a use. What's an accessory? Accessory is something that's customary, incidental. What is customary? Familiar, accepted, established. So, I went to, started to think about golf. And where there are other examples of golf in the town of Southampton. So, I Google searched. It was very easy, you can do this. I found immediately several homes that have have either putting greens, chipping greens, some larger holes, but they're small properties. There is that one property up in Bridgehampton, Three Pond Farm, which has 18 holes, but that's almost 60 acres. So then I started to look at other homes in West Hampton, where the lots are more like an acre in size. Lots of examples there. I went to Google Earth to look up some of these specific addresses. And what I started to notice that next door, there were other homes that had this. So this is
30 seconds.
This is, in my opinion, absolutely customary. It's not unusual in the town of Southampton. So I think it's recreational. It's really no different than croquet or other types of outdoor uses. It's just larger. It's a 600-acre piece. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Don't be shy. Okay. If not,
Very briefly, I have to correct something on the record, if there's no one else.
okay. All right. Carolyn, why don't you come up for just a couple of minutes and then Wayne?
Then we'll end with Wayne.
Okay.
Very briefly,
Agents.
because you've been so kind, all of you, to listen to us all, and we deeply appreciate everything that you do and the talent that this board brings to this town, and I know some of the talent that you bring, and I appreciate it. One of the speakers mentioned that I had stated something that might be misleading to the board. Yes, the zoning code does allow a planned residential development or a cluster. This is true. But as my legal memo will show, what the town code does, before you do a cluster, you have to submit a standard plan. And when you submit the standard plan, you have to see what uses are allowed. So first, you submit your standard plan with the uses that are allowed, and then you do your cluster. So the use is not allowed. So a cluster doesn't suddenly resurrect the use. My legal memo will also point out to you that the enabling legislation, with the group for the East End, by the way, helped to bring to this town that's saving a lot of farmland, enabling legislation for the cluster or open space law in this town also says that you don't get additional uses just because you're clustering. Very clear on that. My memo addresses that, nor can you get in under the park requirement. But one thing I have to observe here, which is very, very disturbing as a taxpayer and a resident of the town, this town has been sued for $100 million by Discovery. I don't know why there's a special counsel hired to defend the town's decision. No. They voted no. They required a supermajority, and they said no. I don't know why special counsel has not shut this down. You do not, as a town, want to be in a position, arbitrary and capricious, the zoning board going one way, the town board going another way, the internal staff, all kinds of things are happening internally. You must be consistent. This town is being sued for $100 million. The zoning board cannot suddenly, arbitrarily and capriciously wedge a project in that was the subject of 4 years of hearings. And you've just saw the tip of the iceberg here tonight. It was hearing after hearing after hearing with hundreds of residents. There is a record for this that is 3 files thick. One cannot hope to do the job that the town board did when they said no. Don't take this hot potato. Don't be the fall guy. Do not fall for this. It's almost embarrassing the length of time spent on this. It's really very open and shut. It's no. It was no because you needed a PDD all along. They lost. They did a great effort. God bless them. I saw them again and again and again and again and again. They lost. Bam. It's over. Do not subject this town to more. It is just, it's unfair. Thank you.
The issue before this board is not the issue that was before the town board. The issue before the town board was a PDD, Plan Development District, where they have creative ways to address different uses. This is an issue that came to us from the building department. It's a completely separate issue.
Well, we already gave people, there are times, I'll give you one minute if you want to say something.
Okay, so when the findings statement came out and it was positive all across the board and they decided to vote it down anyway, that was also arbitrary and capricious, wasn't it? So the other problem we have too is that East Quogue loses. East Quogue's going to lose if we get 137 homes. They're going to lose, but we already lost because we didn't get the PDD. So we've lost. Thank you. Thank you very much for letting us lose. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Wayne?
I want to quickly just say one thing, and then my associate, Steve, or my colleague, actually. Two things. Many speakers, obviously, maybe not versed or counseled in the law, and this board needs to be aware. We've dealt with it in at least 2 reported cases. One is this whole analysis of what's permitted or not permitted. There's no doubt that a golf course is not a listed use in the table of use regulations. It's not a doubt that an unlisted use is prohibited. However, you look at what is permitted, an accessory use, except those prohibited by the code, quote unquote. That's the language. This board, in 2 cases, reported. One was the Renner case. The other was the Schurer case. That was a case where this board, I'm not exactly sure which hamlet, but you considered the question of whether or not an artist studio of a certain size could be a customary accessory use. And the issue, the code allowed home professional offices, which allowed, there's language in there allowing an artist. This board said, we're not prohibited looking at that. It's the artist studio use, although not listed on the code. The argument would be it was thus prohibited, but this board correctly followed the law and said it was allowed, and that was upheld by the second department. That's reported in our case. Similarly, when the board addressed the accessory structure issue in the Renner case, you did the same exact analysis. I just want you to focus on that issue because that immediately, once you get past that threshold question, then brings you clearly in the fact question of whether it's an accessory and whether it's subordinate and incidental.
I have questions. Yeah, and I have a question too.
Sure.
I just have a quick one. Carolyn had mentioned in her testimony about the possibility that there's going to be a clubhouse for the golf course.
Certainly is a clubhouse, and it's been stated. The facts are very clear. It's been on our application, it's been on the plans, it's in front of the planning board, described in the pre-application report. There is a clubhouse. There's 2 components. One component includes 10 residences, which are part of the 118 units, which are allowed. The planning board has the authority to modify the zoning in any form from 5-acre lots down to 2-acre lots to 3-acre lots to attached housing to multiple dwellings. That's in Chapter 247. So 10 of the 118 units are in as multiple, one part of the clubhouse building, and they were going to be condominiums, and then there's smaller lots, and then there's some larger lots, all expressly shown here. You can see the estate lots, you can see the smaller village lots, and et cetera. This is all within the purview of the planning board and the authority to modify. So part of that clubhouse, everybody talks about the size. More than half of it is for those 10 residents. The other portion, we're talking less than 18,000 square feet, which is comparable, similar to other uses. And you need to know, the plan that was in front of the town board, we're at a conceptual stage. We have not submitted detailed floor plans of a building that is going to be detailed. That was one of the elements the planning board asked us to provide in the preliminary application, and it will be done.
But this board has been tasked to decide whether the golf course and the maintenance and operating buildings and structures that accompany this are either accessory or principal. So I understand that you may not have plans, but they need to know the size, the scope, the use.
Not only of a clubhouse,
It's
but
set forth-
any other structure that's
Absolutely.
connected to the
It's
golf-
set
the golf
forth in the
proposals.
plans. It's described in our memo. It's described in Mr. Voorhees's.
Okay, as long as
If
we
you
have the
want us to,
information.
we'll come up and we'll give you the plans, and we'll go line by line.
Well, specifically, where are they? Because I don't want to search, and I think the public needs to know how many structures are there? I mean, like,
There will be a maintenance facility, it's shown, for a golf course. You
Okay,
need
but
a maintenance facility.
where can we look in here?
How big is it?
How big?
Yeah, how big is the building?
I mean, this is an analysis that the zoning board does all the time, whether the artist studio is accessory,
I
whether...
can't tell you right now.
Okay.
But we can get you
maybe
those numbers
You
if
can do
you'd
it in a
like.
written submission, okay? We just want to know, any building.
It's going to be the
or-
same
or
size
use of any kind or
as any
structure.
golf course in the world would have.
Okay. We
And
just-
have all the modern...
But Wayne, this
But
is
we
very...
need to be able to
I understand.
Folks.
I understand.
Okay, folks, if we're going to speak in the audience, we're not going to be able to continue the public hearing. Okay, all
I'd be
right.
happy to get you a drawing and a plan and a list of the clubhouse and a list is shown on the plans, but we'll be happy to get you what is shown on here and all the numbers. Unfortunately, this is not our application. This is the planning board who looked at all those and had no real problems with those and forwarded this to the building department, then forwarded.
Oh, they refused to vote on it, so that's why it's here, so.
Well, but
We wanna know.
they're also asking for an interpretation, which this board makes all the time. How big is the studio as opposed to the house? How big is the garage in relationship to the house?
That's right, so
We'll get
comparing
you that
the,
information. We'll get it.
what is proposed in terms of isolating it, that would be very helpful to us and I think to the public as well.
No, not a problem.
Okay.
So I just want to let
Ryan, you have
Steve-
questions, right?
No, if we're going to get all that, then.
Okay, we're all right, okay. Dick, after this gentleman, you'll go.
Thank you. Stephen Barshoff, Saif Paget in Brazil again. I want to make sure that we walk through this, not for a long time, but...
And Stephen, I hope you're brief, because
I am
we're
going to.
we're running late tonight.
And we're coming back, in my opinion.
I understand. Whatever it is, I just want to
See
be
you now.
clear that the definition of accessory use lists that it may include certain elements. Everything that you've heard tonight about accessory use would lead you to believe that if it is not specifically enumerated in your code, then it is prohibited. That is not the way that your accessory use definition reads on its face. It gives examples, and it uses the word may. And you have, and my colleague has given you the examples of the cases in which you have found other examples of accessory uses which are not specifically mentioned in the code. So much of the argument that you have heard about what is listed and what is not listed and what is prohibited is just simply wrong as a matter of law, and that matter of law has been set by you, and you are bound by principles of administrative stare decisis, meaning you have to follow your own decisions to apply that the same way. So that argument is out the door entirely. As far as the allegation that was made that if there is reciprocity, that somehow doesn't make it customarily incidental, subordinate, meaning that the benefits can only go one way, that's just flat out absurd. There are many cases, and I'll just give you one of the ones that we cite, in which there was a school that had, and there was a question as to whether or not the radio station and the tower was something that would be accessory to the school. Well, of course, there was an interrelationship. The radio station benefited the school, and the school benefited the radio station. Went both ways. There is the notion that if it goes both ways, it can't be accessory. I've never even heard the principle articulated, but it makes no sense whatsoever. Then the issue of whether this golf course can exist without the homes. Of course it cannot exist without the homes, because no, there are no businesses, there are no stores, there is no commercial. What there is are recreational amenities, and you'll get the list, you'll get the square footages, you'll get all of the information that you asked for, but the bottom line is that the golf course only can exist from the dues and the contributions that are made by the homeowners. It cannot exist independently. It is impossible. That is one factor, one rather large factor, that distinguishes this from whatever applications.
You already had 4 minutes, and I think we're going on another 4. So if you can conclude your comments.
I certainly can. I had one last point to make, and I appreciate your patience. You know what? That's enough.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, Dick?
20 seconds.
Okay.
This is a pre-application, not another application. You don't get this right, they bring it back to you again. And that includes all of the details that you're asking for them about the nature of what's being done. What's more important is whether it can be done at all. The 2 cases that Mr. Brune cited, neither one was in an APOD. This town is leading all of Long Island in trying to protect water, and we are having water crises everywhere. If this were permitted, there would be nothing we could do about it. But because it's impermissible and undesirable, and at this point unacceptable given the water quality problems that we're having, you got to go right to the heart of it and say, is this permitted under the PRD or not? It's no more complicated than that.
Can I get 3 seconds too?
Yep, you got it. You got it, just state your name if you could.
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Just say your name, that's all. Okay. What would you like to tell us?
I don't get this. This is an application for existing code, and he's talking about the water quality. I don't. He gets this. What can we stop it at some point?
We're going to stop soon.
Okay, I'm done.
And I
somebody else wants to come up and rebut what I have to say. They
understand.
can.
I had said at the outset that what we want people to focus on the interpretation that's before us. We're here to listen. Sir, you anything else you wanted to tell us?
Brian.
I use my 20 seconds.
Okay, all right.
Thank you all for your time.
Okay, all right. So I think we've covered things fairly well tonight.
I have a couple more just questions I want to
Yep.
let Wayne at least prepare if they're coming back.
Wayne?
Okay, well, these are the things that I've written down that I wanted to get more information on. I wanted to get more information on, I've seen it in the reports, and I think you guys had talked about it a little bit, the seasonal nature of these. Is that a covenanted thing? Is that just a proposed thing? Because I think that can also talk about the intensity of the use. I know that the issue before the board is talking about the golf course not being open to the public at large, being limited to the homeowners and the guests. I'm assuming maybe somewhere in here it talks about, you think maybe the maximum number of people who are living here. I'm sure there's a breakdown of how many bedrooms. I mean, I know you can't predict guests, but it would be nice to know. I think, again, if and when the board renders a decision, well, we are going to. When the board renders a decision on this, they're going to want to frame it in a way that is as narrow as possible, that's speaking only to this golf course and only this PRD and only this property, and what makes it unique or not unique or precedent setting. So I think those are issues that may help the board look at whether or not it's customary and accessory. Again, we talk about this all the time with gas stations. We make them break it down. How many things are you selling there? How much gas do you sell versus how many things are in the convenience store? So I think obviously we can't bind you to a certain number of homeowners and guests, but I think you must have some idea based on the units and how many bedrooms are in them. And that's it. That's all I have.
Okay.
Will there be a subsequent hearing?
I'm not sure yet, Dick. We're getting there. Okay. But what I wanted to mention to all of you is that we've listened to everything that you've told us tonight. We've been given a pile of material to go through, which we're going to go through. We're going to review everything, and we're going to carefully consider all the points that have been raised. However, I think got to figure out where we are in terms of whether we need to continue this public hearing at another date.
I would like to.
I think we have to.
Okay.
And I have something to say. If anyone wants to submit anything on either side, not the night of, no less than a week before, because we can't review it the night of, so it doesn't accomplish anything.
All right.
Memos of law, whatever it is, I can't read it in 5 minutes before the meeting.
Okay. Okay. No, I think that, yep. Go ahead.
We're going to leave the public hearing open. I'm going to hold it over for all purposes. How much time you need, Wayne, to get it together?
We can get something within the next 2 weeks.
All right, so
We got to
listen.
get our agenda moving for other applicants as
Right.
well. Nobody wants to come when this is on.
Right.
Just let him go first.
I don't know why that is, yeah. Okay.
Listen,
All right,
Are
so-
we good with, what's the last meeting in August look like?
It's got 11? No
Huh?
good? No good. Right, right.
Do we want to go further out?
Well, we need a full board.
Yeah.
So it'd have to be 9/6.
That's the first meeting in September?
Yes.
Have a full board, 9/6, everyone, as far as you guys know?
Yeah.
All right. So I'll make a motion to leave this open for all purposes till September 6th.
And what that means, folks, is that anyone can submit anything they want. Okay? The public hearing in its entirety remains open, so if you want to send us a letter, if you want to send us a memo of law, if you want to send us pictures, we will accept, right up until September 6th, and then we'll see what happens that night.
And because the board is the applicant,
I'd like
there
them a
will
week
be no
before.
adjournments.
Okay.
We're going to review stuff.
Going on
We're
no
gonna
matter
submit
what.
anything.
Okay, so we'd ask that submissions be a week prior to our next hearing date. What is that date?
September 6th.
No, week before.
August 31.
August 31. So
August
we-
30 is the Friday.
Okay, you want to do?
Here's the issue with that. I would
Okay.
not be able to get it to you before,
The meeting?
not in enough time for you to review it.
When
Especially with the
when
holiday.
you when you need
When
it?
could you?
Make it 2 weeks. 24th of August?
24th of August.
Any
Okay.
submissions
So-
you want us to review, August 24th?
Anything you want us to review prior to the meeting.
A month now.
By August 24th. At end of business, 4 PM, to Candace, our secretary.
Means memo.
We do that by 3, so they're not coming at 10:45.
Okay, by 3, but August 24th. Okay.
And we start meeting.
All right, so Keith made a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Mr. DeCessa.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Good night.
Carolyn, do you want this back?
We have
This is the board.
a second call back.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, what was that? Not 9/6.
Hey, are you the one that was last one?
Nice to
Okay.
meet you.
All
I
right,
just
nice to
wanted
meet
to
you
meet you in
too.
person.
Hi, Valerie, how are you?
Good. So this is the
Excuse me,
first.
hold on, excuse me.
Yeah.
You still on record?
Still, I know, still on the record. So we're.
So why don't you go for a break,
Next
take us over.
application. You need to speak to me for a couple of minutes?
I just had a quick question. This is my first ZBA meeting, so the.
No questions on the record. We either adjourn or.
Yep.
Yeah,
Adjourn.
you're going to have
Okay,
to,
5-minute
we're
break.
going to take a 5-minute break.
you're going to have to wait until after.
We're back on.
Get a second call. Dawn Zweikel.
Zwickel, yes.
Yes. 27 Peninsula Drive in Noyak, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-17-2-78. Applicant requests relief from Town Code 230-11, Residential Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations, to allow the attic space to the existing two-story dwelling on a non-conforming lot to be converted into habitable space, which will result in a three-story dwelling where only 2 stories is permitted and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction. Guess that's Michael.
Okay, good evening. Just have to swear you both in unless you're attorneys. Okay, so if you can state your names and addresses.
Doron Zwickel, 27 Peninsula Drive, Sag Harbor.
Okay.
Angela Zarillo, 10 Arcalay Street, Sag Harbor, New York.
Okay, you both swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, you can tell us about your application.
So thank you very much. I'm speaking here on behalf, obviously, of myself, my wife who came, but she's 5 months pregnant and she had to go. We have an 18-month-old, and as I mentioned, she's pregnant. We're planning to have more children, and just meet our growing needs. We bought the house with an existing full-height attic. We're not planning to touch the envelope of the building. We're not adding any other entrance, not trying to add a kitchen or turn it into a rental, additional property, because I chatted with one of my neighbors and he asked me if I'm going to put a kitchen there, and my answer was blatantly no. Just trying to take advantage of that extra space that is already there and use it for a kid's playroom, the nanny. I have family traveling from overseas and from the West Coast that comes to visit us, and it does get a little bit crowded. We fell in love with the area and the block, and we're really planning to spend more and more time here, eventually possibly moving here full time. So we're thinking long term, and it will be very helpful.
Okay, so I just want to tell you a couple of things about living space in an attic or an upper level. First of all, if we were to grant this relief, New York State Building Code will require a sprinkler system. That's the first thing. The second thing is that most of the time, the town code, of course, doesn't allow for three-story dwellings. However, there have been some changes in terms of how the building code is interpreted as to what is 3 stories and what isn't. But what I will tell you is that most of the time in the past, when we have granted habitable living space to what is a 3rd story, whether it be an attic or something of that, a 3-story building built from the outset, usually in those circumstances, there are limitations on the property. Usually what happens is it's a functional 3 stories, whereas, for example, if it is a waterfront property, the lower level is not able to be used for habitable living space. More often, I would say most of the time, when we have applications for 2 to 3 story dwellings, there's some limitation on the property, whether it be that or there have been other applications we've had where it's been arguably either pre-existing or it's existed for a decent period of time, like a partial 3rd story. The concern that I have about this, and I'm only speaking for myself, the other board members, my colleagues may see it differently, is that if we were to just flat out grant an application for someone who just wants a 3rd story for their family and living space, we will be bombarded with applications for attic living space in the town of Southampton. Our agenda will be filled with these applications for the next 10 years and longer. That's what my concern is.
Sure. Just to respond to that, because I understand that point. Mr. Zwick-O'Doran's prepared, they've made preparations to install a sprinkler system, and it wouldn't, at current, they're only part-time occupants, but, I mean, again, the idea would be that they would be coming out more often, but a sprinkler system would...
Well, a sprinkler system is required, so it's not something that's optional anyway.
Right.
But it's the other concern. Yeah.
I understand it.
I feel like saying, I need a basis. You gotta give me a reason why you know, not just because you want more living space.
Sure, but it is also a pre-existing non-conforming lot, so the option of actually building yet another structure on the property is not possible.
How big is the house?
It's 3,200 square feet was sold to me.
And we just put in an
3,200 square feet now.
Yes.
With a basement?
With an unfinished basement, yeah.
Can you finish the basement?
To my understanding, it requires a lot of alterations and digging and adding
Yeah,
stairs.
you have to have an access, you have to stair, you have to have an egress window, but that's a way to have more living space without having to do the attic. That wouldn't require, probably not a variance from us. You may have to get a variance from the state in order, if the height of the ceiling
Right.
is.
Well, we can't expand out to the rear of the building envelope because there's a patio that's already there.
Yeah.
And
No.
on another, there's only really one direction, and we might then violate the setbacks on that side.
So come for,
existing
you'd
four-bedroom
be better off coming to us with needing a variance for that than for the third floor.
Definitely. We'd be much more in favor of basement.
That would be so cut and dry.
I'm not in favor of a third floor.
That wouldn't be so cut and dry, but you got a
Telling you right
5-4
away.
here.
The attic does have windows on each
Do a bump
end.
out on this
Doesn't
side here,
matter.
you know? Do a bump out, whatever. It's not like it,
Well,
so if you gave it to me and said, I got a 1,400 square foot house, I need more living space.
And
Yeah,
maybe,
3,200 square
maybe I
foot
don't
house.
have a basement.
That includes the garage, by the way, the square footage includes the garage.
I mean, we're just trying to capture the fact that the attic is built, and instead of doing undue additional financial
but-
burden
but-
onto the owner.
Yeah, but you understand, this application is unusual in that there isn't a limitation on the property that requires you to have the attic as living space. In other words, this is really something that's voluntary, as opposed to something where you have a severe limitation on the property. That's most of the applications we hear about third-story habitable living space. That's not present here, and what that means is that most of the properties in the town of Southampton could apply for a variance for a third story, and we'll say, whoa, you gave that applicant a third story attic, where's mine?
It's about
What's
precedence.
different about our property? Nothing.
Precedence is an important part of our consideration.
Yeah, the town code says that there are only supposed to be 2 stories of habitable living space. But even with that, you can get living space in a basement if you comply with the rules for that, which aren't involving, usually us. But in any case, what I'm hearing is that there does not appear to be 4 votes in favor of having the third story be living space. So maybe you want to rethink this as to what other options you might be able to come up with.
I'm in agreement with Adam as well. I don't see a compelling reason why it couldn't be pushed into either a larger building envelope to the back or the side, or to the basement as well.
Well, I mean, I get, my response would be, I mean, again, we're,
The truth is, I mean, I understand the precedents, but seems like I will incur with much bigger expenses to utilize the basement than the attic that's already there, and it's above grade, and and the windows are there. I think it would probably cost me 4 times as much.
But that's not the consideration.
I understand.
Yeah. We have to consider.
You have to follow the rules.
Well, and we consider applications for variances. You heard us, consider a few applications tonight. We take each case on its merits. But I will tell you, if you look through our decisions on third-story living space, you will see always limitations of some kind on the property or pre-existing use of some kind on the property on those occasions where we've granted third-story living space. We're very careful about it because the code doesn't allow it, and we can't open the doors to people throughout the town to be making this type of request.
sure, I mean, but I guess that would be a generic thing. I mean, if the owner is willing to incur the cost of installing the sprinkler system.
There's no support for this on a board that I can hear, at least not 4 votes, not 4 votes that I can hear for this.
You got 20,000 plus square foot lot there. You come to the table, you don't have any constraints, if your lot was waterfront, something, there's nothing. Listen, I got an attic. I want to be able to use it for living space. It's going to be a third story. As Mr. Grossman prefaced his comments when he first started to speak, this board will be inundated with requests for third story, you know what I mean?
I understand.
So my direction to you is bump it out, down below. I can hear you, I'm sure you don't want to spend the money or whatever, but that's the option, as far as I'm concerned. I'm just one person on the board.
Yeah.
I just don't see a hardcore reason for me to disregard the code to, you have living space on the third story.
Yeah.
I apologize. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I'd love to say yes, but it's just, I'm only one.
Yeah, and I'm not hearing any board members speaking up in support, and so you can either, we can adjourn it, and you can come back with a different plan, but pretty much, I think you're probably gonna have to have a new application, because if it's still an application for a third-story living space, I just don't think there's support for it, or you could withdraw the application. So you can also think about it, and you can also just have us render a decision, but I don't think the
You're
decision's
giving me
gonna...
a big chance. Okay, I understand.
Okay. So what would you like to do at this point?
Is there going to be a vote, or do you?
Sounds like...
Listen, we can close the public hearing, and render a decision in 2 weeks.
That's right.
Or
You can withdraw it,
Or you can,
and then you won't get, like, maybe the decision you want. And then look at your basement, look at all your other options. You may need another variance.
Or could we continue it, not close the public hearing, but continue it and then allow you to think about how you want to proceed? Either asking us to make a decision or advising us that you're either going to withdraw it or change it.
You can also get legal advice
You can
on
get
this
some legal
as well, but as of right now, there isn't support to grant.
So we can give you an answer, you can give an answer tomorrow?
You can give Candace a call at your convenience within...
I think, Michael, you were basically trying to say that we'll just leave it open for all purposes for a couple of weeks, and that gives us some time to think, and we'll send us a letter that maybe they want to withdraw it, or whatever.
So,
Yeah, I mean, given the feedback we just got, let us just
You got
discuss it.
Is 2 weeks enough? You want a month?
Oh, no,
No, I think 2 weeks is...
yeah, that's more than
2 weeks?
enough
Okay,
time
very
to
good.
weigh the,
Listen.
thank you for listening.
We'll put it on. Mike's gonna put it on there, and any time during that 2-week period, if you want to if you choose to send a letter to us, you want to withdraw, you can do that.
Sure.
Otherwise, we're gonna render the decision in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fair enough.
Yeah, well, you'd need actually to let us know before, the
Yeah,
next
well-
meeting, I'm sorry, is
August 2nd.
August 2nd. So
you will
you'd
know.
need to give us, at least by July 31st, if you want us to make a decision.
Okay.
If not, you please let Candace know how you want to proceed, and then we can go from there.
If you can, within about
Without about a week.
about a week.
Yeah.
Right.
Very soon.
Yeah, we just
Okay.
want to take away your comments, we'll discuss it, and we'll probably figure out something early next week.
Okay.
Okay?
Adam, I think there's somebody in the audience, I don't know if you need to see her, who wants to speak
But anyone
against
else?
Do you need to speak against the application?
Yes, is there anyone from the public who'd like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of Zwickel? Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yes, you said.
Yes. You have to come up. Okay. Okay. We don't get you on the microphone unless you come up.
My name is Valerie DiLorenzo. I'm here on behalf of my mother, Elaine, who lives in the area.
Okay, and do you swear to tell?
I do.
The truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. And did you say your address?
It's 10 Crescent Street, Sag Harbor, New York.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Okay, so you heard, did you hear the comments?
I heard the comments, and my mother asked me to come on her behalf with her apologies. She's elderly and immobile, and she asked me to read a brief statement, if I may.
Sure.
And she just said her name is Elaine DiLorenzo, owner of Lot 30, which adjoins Lot 23 in the rear, which she has owned and occupied for over 50 years. Since the purchase of the property, Mr. Zwickel has done extensive exterior work, which is architecturally is quite beautiful and well done. Although this variance indicates the owner will work within the perimeter of the existing lot to provide additional living space, he will, however, in essence, use the attic as a third floor to the building to be used for housing rather than storage as original built. The whole area of Turtle Cove contains no third-floor housing and would open the door to other owners to follow his lead. Several years ago, a neighbor on Crescent Street tried to add a third story and refused by the board. This is why I have concerns about the potential variance. The revised three-story building with its additional windows and lights will severely impact on my one-story home and neighboring homes. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Appreciate
You
it.
want to submit
And
that
you-
letter?
Yeah, if you want to submit the letter. And your mom's an adjacent property owner? She lives next door.
Behind, at the rear.
Behind.
And just to clarify, we're not adding another story, it's contained
No,
within the
we-
existing
yeah,
structure.
we understand.
Just wanted to say that.
You're, as I understand this, if I see it correctly, you're not changing the structure, you're just changing the interior use, is that correct?
Correct. There's already
Is
an
what your proposal is.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I think we've covered it.
Yes, so we will close the public hearing.
And we'll respond within the next.
We're holding it open till.
Yeah, holding it
Oh, no.
open, and then
You want
we're
to
gonna respond.
close it for decision 8-2. I'm sorry. That's what you wanted to do.
Thank you.
Okay.
What he said.
Is that what?
No, so.
Do we?
I will chat later, the difference between closing it.
So we keep it open and you can come back.
No, I mean withdrawing or close, I'm just trying to understand the difference.
I thought you were going to close. I got
If there's
confused.
any.
Close, and you're going to prepare a decision unless they were withdrawing? Is that what you were looking to do, Mike?
Ask them, do you want to come back? Or do you just want to let us know in writing?
Yeah, if we can just take the comments and then decide, based upon these comments, whether we just withdraw or...
I understand where this is going, I'm just trying to understand the difference between withdrawing, the advantage or disadvantage of withdrawing versus,
So...
Well...
versus reapplying and getting rejected.
Well,
So-
that's right. We would be right, we would.
I'd rather not get rejected, I'd rather.
I understand. So in order for us, because, you know, we have an application before us, in order for us to act, we have to have the public hearing, which we had tonight,
Sure.
and then we would render a decision. But, you know, it appears that the decision wouldn't be granting the relief, would be denying the relief that you're requesting. So if you'd rather us not issue that decision, then you can withdraw.
And that's what we just were, I thought we were just gonna have a
Yeah, so
couple of days to
I want to say,
decide to withdraw.
I'm 99% withdrawing. Okay,
Unless you prefer to come, unless you prefer to come back. Unless you
No,
prefer to
if
come
you
back.
don't want to waste more of your time, we 99% withdrawing, but I just want to, is it okay if we let the office know tomorrow?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay, or the.
Within the next week.
Perfect.
Okay. that
Yeah,
would be great.
that's our intent.
So if I could, we'll close the public
Closing the
hearing.
determination
except for-
phase
Except
two?
for written submissions. If you'll contact us within the next week to let us know whether or not you wish to come back, or is that not an option at this point?
No, we're
it's
going
not
to
an
we're
option.
to close
We're
8-2
gonna
for
close.
decision.
Okay.
Okay.
Contact us within
Thank you.
the next week to let us know what your intentions are with this application.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
for saying.
All right.
Yep, all right.
After a
Thank you
long
for
night.
your patience
Sorry.
tonight, too.
Thanks for your
Yeah.
patience.
Okay, do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Motion is to close with an 8-2 decision.
That's
right?
correct.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
I have a determination in matter of...
Actually, we have people who are waiting for
Yeah,
decisions.
when we do,
They're mine.
Oh, they
Yes,
are.
they are.
Well, let's.
aren't they Beekman, Beckman?
We're gonna do yours first. Okay, so I have two determinations,
Estimate.
both regarding Howard Alexander Eisenman, trustee of the Howard Alexander Eisenman Revocable Living Trust. The first decision I'm going to read is for 3 Ridge Lane in Hampton Bays. It's tax map number 900-231-110. Applicant requests the following variance, that this board declare the subject parcel identified as Lot 10. Tax map number, as I indicated, has not merged with the adjacent parcels to the north and east identified as Lot 11, tax map number 900-231-111, as a matter of law, that the subject lots be regarded as single and separate, and that Lot 10 is entitled to relief pursuant to zoning code 330-115D3, and any other relief necessary. The premises is in the R40 zoning district with a street address of 3 Ridge Lane in Hampton Bays, town of Southampton. I previously indicated the tax map number, with a size of 17,538 square feet, which consists of a single-family, two-story residence with attached second-story deck, and a detached shed, and is non-conforming as to size. We received a copy of the CO. We received the prior variance of this board, decision number 3876, dated April 19th, 1974, which granted a variance which divided lots 10 and lot 11, and also required a flag be extended to a width of 20 feet at the perpendicular, and a letter from Paul Houlihan, and that the decision is still valid, and apparently there was an application for subdivision that was not completed. Type 2 pursuant to SECRA. The public hearing testimony from Susan and Edward Wolfersdorf consisted of explanation of the applicant seeks a determination that lot 10 and lot 11, which is a flag lot and is vacant land, have not merged. We went through the history of the two parcels, the fact that they were merged at two different time periods, including between July 18th, 1974 and September 2nd, 1997, and then again between February 3rd, 2009 and the present. Based on all the information that we were provided and the testimony, we conclude that the subject property is a single and separate lot due to the fact that, based on the facts presented herein, no legal merger occurred between lot 10 and lot 11, and that this board also reaches a conclusion due to the fact that the subject property is similar in size and to adjacent parcels in Ridge Lane in Hampton Bays, and the subject 10 and 11 were never used in conjunction with one another. Lot 10 did not materially enhance the value of utility of lot 11. Lot 10 would not add to any value to lot 11, the lot with which it is alleged to have merged. The fact is that we're dealing with parcels with two separate tax map numbers, addresses, separate deeds, and have been shown not to have been used by photographic evidence, not to have been used in conjunction with one another. Based on the foregoing, this board concludes that lot 10 and lot 11 have not merged as a matter of law, and finds that the applicant does not require variance relief to establish the status of this parcel as a single separate lot. Therefore, in the interest of justice and for the reasons set forth herein, this board concludes that the subject parcel, lot 10, identified as 900-231-110, is a valid single and separate lot with a size of 17,538 square feet, that lot 10 is non-conforming as to size, and that lot 10 is therefore entitled to relief pursuant to zoning code 330-115 D3. Based on the foregoing, all is shown in the survey of John Gallagher, surveyor, dated August 3rd, 2017, redated April 16th, 2018, which was submitted with the application and is incorporated herein, and any other, and the applicant is further directed to separate the ownership of lots 10 and 11 with the preparation and filing at the office of the Suffolk County Clerk a new deed for at least one of the parcels, so they are no longer in common ownership within 1 year of the date of this decision. Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I have the other application for the trust. This is the application of Howard Alexander Eisenman, trustee of the Howard Alexander Eisenman Revocable Living Trust for 5 Ridge Lane in Hampton Bays, tax at number 900-231-111. Now, in this application, this is the vacant lot, which is also a flag, and the applicant is asking that lot 11 has not, that we declare that lot 11 has not merged with lot 10, and that the subject lots be regarded as single and separate, and that lot 10 be entitled to relief pursuant to zoning code 330-115 D3. In addition, applicant also requests relief, residential district table of dimensional regulations for a principal rear yard setback of 55 feet where 70 feet is required, a principal minimum side yard setback of 17.2 feet where 20 feet is required, and a principal total side yard setback of 43.2 feet where 60 feet is required, all for a proposed 2-story residence, and any other relief necessary. The premises is in the R40 zoning district. I indicated the address and tax map number before. The size is 18,834 square feet, which consists of vacant land and is non-conforming as to size. It has the same information that I indicated in the prior decision. It is used separately, separate deeds, separate tax map numbers, not used in conjunction with the adjacent lot 10. Also, I hadn't previously mentioned that lot 10 has had their residence for the full-time period of the common ownership of the two lots. Type 2 pursuant to SECRA. First, we conclude that the subject property is a single and separate lot due to the fact that, based on the facts presented, no legal merger occurred between lot 11 and lot 10, and this board also reaches the conclusion due to the fact that the subject property is similar in size to adjacent and neighboring parcels on Ridge Lane in the hamlet of Hampton Bays. In the public hearing record, there was also discussion of the fact that the dimensional relief for the proposed residence was minimal. It passes the 5-part test. Based on the foregoing, besides the relief that the subject lot 11 is a valid single and separate lot with a size of 18,884 square feet and non-conforming as to size and entitled to relief pursuant to zoning code 33115D. We're also requiring, as in the prior decision, that the lots be separated by, the applicant is further directed to separate the ownership of lots 11 and 10 with the preparation and filing at the office of the Suffolk County Clerk, a new deed for at least one of the parcels so they are no longer in common ownership within 1 year of the date of this decision. In addition, we grant the requested setback relief. Relief is from 33011 for principal rear yard setback of 55 feet where 70 feet is required, principal minimum side yard setback of 17.2 feet where 20 feet is required, and principal total side yard setback of 43.2 feet where 60 feet required, all for a proposed two-story residence. The residence will have the location as shown on the survey of John Gallagher, surveyor dated August 3rd, 2017, last revised June 22nd, 2018, and the designs and plans of Nicholas Anthony Vero, architect, dated June 21st, 2018, which were submitted with the application and incorporated herein, and any other relief the applicant requires for the proposed two-story residence to be built at the subject property.
Second.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Good luck.
Good night.
Have a good night.
A determination in the matter of Watermill 27 Partners LLC located at 1020 Montauk Highway. Applicant, attorney Elizabeth Vale, was seeking relief for a freestanding sign and a bluestone patio. It is an unlisted action under SECRA. This board assumed lead agency on April 19th of 2018 and adopted a conditional neg deck. At a public hearing, Ms. Vale testified and appeared on behalf of the applicant that the applicant is the tenant in the premise and seeks to legalize the construction of a bluestone patio without the benefit of a building permit. She stated that view of Google Earth indicates that in November of 2011 and March of 2012, a previous tenant constructed this patio. The sign is between the road and the building. The building is within the setback of the sign setback, so there is no place where the sign can properly be located. Therefore, this board grants relief to legalize the bluestone patio constructed without the benefit of a building permit within the required minimum side yard of the building, Town Code Section 33076D, to allow the bluestone patio to remain within the minimum side yard of a principal setback of 2 feet, and relief from Town Code Section 330-167B1A to allow the bluestone patio to be used as part of a pre-existing non-conforming restaurant, and for a proposed freestanding sign, Town Code 330-205B1, to allow the sign to be located within a front yard having a building setback of 7.4 feet, where no freestanding sign shall be permitted unless the entire building to which it relates to the setback from the front line is 40 feet or more, and to allow the sign to be located 1 foot from the easterly lot line where the setback required is 20 feet from all property lines and pyramid law, to allow the sign to encroach into the sky plane in the amount of 3.625 cubic feet. These variances are granted for structures as shown on a survey by Michael K. Wick, surveyed March 7th of 2017, and the pyramid sketch prepared by Sean F. Leonard, architect, dated May 22nd of 2017, and attached as Exhibit C to supplement to the statement in support by Farrell Fritz. The decision is conditioned upon planning board review and approval of additional parking related to occupancy of the patio to ensure future cross access to the northwest and east. The decision is subject to the conditions and other permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval.
Second.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
I have a decision in matter of the application of Blackwell LLC, located at 150 Newtown Road in Hampton Bays. Property is approximately 7,350 square feet. They're looking for 254.87 cubic feet of relief for a proposed two-story addition to an existing dwelling. Part of what they're trying to do, so you folks know, is to make the stairwell more safer. They do have a handicapped individual that resides within the home. Passes the five-part test, therefore this board grants relief from Town Code 330-84D, pyramid height for an encroachment in the amount of 254.87 cubic feet for a proposed two-story addition to an existing dwelling for structure shown in the survey prepared by Pinnacle Lane Surveyors LLP dated September 7, 2017, last revised May 9, 2018, and the pyramid sketch prepared by Todd O'Connell, AIA, dated February 8, 2018. The grant of the foregoing relief is subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. DeCessa.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Have a determination in the matter of 873 Majors Pass, which is Rodney Parish.
Therefore,
Read the relief at the end. Property is located, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-96-2-46 and is approximately 15,448 square feet in the R20 zoning district. Benefits from a pre-existing certificate of occupancy, C 16147 dated October 11th of 1994 for a one-story, one-frame
Champagne?
dwelling deck attached. Robert Marcinsick of O'Shea, Marcinsick and Bruin represented the applicant. The applicant seeks to convert an existing one-story studio into an accessory apartment. Mr. Marcinsick maintained that the apartment would not have any impact on the neighborhood. It meets the five-part test. Therefore, this board grants relief from the following town code to convert an existing one-story studio into an accessory apartment. Town Code Section 330-11-2F, accessory apartment special standards, to allow the accessory apartment to be located on a parcel that has a lot area of less than 30,000 square feet, to allow the lot of 15,448 square feet where 16,000 feet is required, to allow a lot width of 80.13 feet where 84 feet is required, and for an accessory side yard setback of 0.2 feet where 7 feet is required. This board also grants relief from Town Code Section 330-11.2G1 to allow the size of the proposed accessory apartment to be 55.6% where the total floor area of the main dwelling where a maximum of 35% is permitted, and to allow the size of the accessory apartment to be 340 square feet where a minimum of 400 square feet is required. This relief is granted to convert an existing one-story studio into an accessory apartment as shown in a survey prepared by Michael Rayner of the Rayner Group, prepared March 8th, 2018, last revised July 9th, 2018. The floor plans by Vincent Gordiello, P.E., grant of the foregoing relief is subject to other conditions and permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises, including but not limited to an accessory apartment application with the Southampton Town Building Department.
Second.
Mr. DeCessa.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
For determination in the matter of Simon Andreychik and Victoria Andreychik for property located at 74 Deck Street in Flanders. That's a 10,000 square foot lot in the R15 zoning district, making it a non-conforming lot. It's a type 2 action under SECRA. Mr. Andreychuk, the applicant and owner, testified that he and his wife are seeking to expand their residence to accommodate their growing family. He noted that although the residence was being expanded with a second-story expansion, the overall lot coverage of the property was being decreased from the existing coverage of 25.4% to a proposed coverage of 20.7%. In this instance, the board finds that they meet the five-part test. Therefore, in the interest of justice, and for the reasons set forth herein, this board grants relief from Town Code 330-11, Residential Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations, for a principal front yard setback of 29.8 feet, where 40 feet is required, for a proposed second-story addition and covered front porch, as shown on survey made by Young & Young Surveyors, last dated April 19th, 2018, which shows the existing and proposed improvements, as well as architectural renderings made by Jason Allen Pontieri of Core Drafting, dated July 16th, 2018, last revised July 17th, 2018.
Second.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. DeCessa. Chair votes aye. I have one. You want to go?
Please go ahead.
Okay. I have amended decision in the application of Richard Peters and Maureen Peters. This is for 33 Canoe Place Road in Hampton Bays, tax number 900-26644.
We had actually rendered a decision back on May 18, 2017, decision number D017084, which granted relief for a proposed two-story residence. Where we heard from Tim McCulley to address, and Tim asked us to address the fact that after the decision was rendered, he was informed the applicants require additional pyramid relief due to an error on the original survey which did not account for the limit of moderate wave action designation. The proposed house is seaward of that line. As a result, they need more pyramid relief. We also received an administrative wetlands permit dated June 21st, 2018, and confirming renewal of the Conservation Board wetlands permit, which has an expiration date of June 22nd, 2019. And we received a referral report from Harry Ludlow on behalf of the Conservation Board indicating support for the application and that the survey accurately depicts the required first floor elevation and has been approved by the Conservation Board. So they're asking for, rather than 5,032 cubic feet of pyramid relief, it's now going to be 6,493 cubic feet of pyramid relief total. Therefore, it is hereby resolved that decision number D017084 dated May 18, 2017 is revised to reflect the revised pyramid relief for the proposed two-story residence as follows. This board grants applicant relief from zoning code 33084D, pyramid relief for a proposed encroachment in the amount of 6,493 cubic feet, 3,871 cubic feet along the north wall, 2,622 cubic feet along the south wall for a proposed two-story residence. The two-story residence will have the dimensional requirements and location as shown on the survey of Floyd Carrington, surveyor, dated June 24, 2015, as well as the floor plans and pyramid sketch of Diane Harold, architect, dated May 2018, which are submitted with the application and incorporated herein, and is subject to any other permits the applicants require for final approval of the two-story residence to be built to the subject property. All other provisions of decision number D017084, except the provisions that have been revised in this amended decision, shall remain in full force and effect.
Second.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
I have a determination in the matter of the Berkeley Hawson 2012 Family Trust, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-3-1-27. I'll read the relief at the end. Subject premises is a parcel containing 24,310 square feet, located at 21 Peconic Avenue, Sag Harbor, Southampton Town. R20 zoning district, type 2 pursuant to SECRA. Attorney for the applicant, David Gilmartin, appeared with the applicant. Applicant seeks to demolish the existing 1.5-story house and construct a new 2-story house, as well as put an addition onto the 1.5-story garage located on the south side of the property. David Gilmartin offered testimony that the applicant, one of the applications was for a total side yard setback replacement of an accessory structure, which was a barbecue in the required side yard. Neighbors appeared in opposition with respect to the barbecue, not in opposition to the house. The house is screened. The application meets the 5-part test. Therefore, in the interest of justice and the reasons set forth herein, this board grants applicant relief from Town Code Section 33083C yards to allow the proposed 30-inch eaves or overhangs to extend into the required easterly and westerly side yards, with setbacks of 17.5 feet each, respectively, where a maximum of 18 inches is permitted. 2. Section 33084D pyramid for a proposed encroachment in the amount of 2,102 cubic feet, 1,051 cubic feet on the east side and 1,051 cubic feet on the west side. With respect to the proposed addition of the existing garage, applicant requests a determination if the garage is subordinate and incidental under the definition of Town Code Section 330-5 because of its size to the main dwelling. All of this was last shown on a survey by Borowski Land Surveying, dated July 17th of 2017 and last updated May 14th of 2018. And the additional drawings as submitted by Mark C. Matthews, architect. The variance is contingent on the applicant fulfilling all other requirements of the building and/or conservation departments.
Second.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
I have a decision in the matter of the application Peter A. Conti II. I will read the relief at the end. The subject premise is located at 4002 Noyak Road, Hamlet of Noyak, Town of Southampton. The property is identified on the Suffolk County tax map as 900-18-1-27.4 and is approximately 8,698 square feet. This is in the R20 zoning district and type 2 action under SECRA. At the public hearing on this matter, the applicant appeared stating he is seeking relief for a front yard setback for a proposed covered entrance porch and for pyramid encroachment to change the dormers on the house. Mr. Conti maintained that the variances are minimal and in no way affect the character of the neighborhood or property values in the immediate area. There were no surrounding neighbors opposed to this application. All surrounding individual homes are similar in size or even sometimes larger in size. The structure wasn't built without the benefit of a building permit. The benefits sought by this application cannot be achieved by some other method other than the variance because the applicant's property is only 70 feet wide. The total size of the parcel led to this variance request. This application passes a 5-part test. Therefore, this board grants relief from Town Code Section 330-11 for a principal front yard setback of 38.1 feet, where 40 feet is required for a proposed covered entry porch, and relief from Town Code Section 330-84B for a total proposed encroachment in the amount of 1,569 cubic feet for a proposed roof renovation to an existing dwelling as shown on a survey prepared by Rayner, Marks, and Carrington, surveyed September 27, 2017, last revised May 14, 2018, and the plans prepared by architect George J. LeBrun, dated April 16, 2018, last revised May 15, 2018. The grant of the foregoing relief is subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of subject premises.
Second. Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mrs. DeSessa?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
We have a decision in the matter of the application of RWRP LLC, 119 New Light Lane, Bridgehampton, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 984-133.1. The applicant requested relief for a proposed rear-yard tennis court coverage of 27.4%, where a maximum of 20% is permitted. Please note that the advertisement for this variance application, the numbers were transposed and it was advertised at 24.7. The actual initial request was for 27.4. The subject premises contains approximately 60,195 square feet in the R60 zoning district. The subject parcel is conforming as to size. The owners took title on 9/25/2013 and are in process of building a new home and pool with a building permit. This is a type 2 action under SECRA. And at the public hearing, Mr. Perillo, one of the primary members of the LLC, explained that the applicant seeks to construct a tennis court. He proposed a 55 by 115. However, he agreed to reduce the size of the court to 55 by 110 with 45-degree corners. Mr. Perillo also agreed to submit revised plans showing the reduced court and evergreen screening. The tennis court will conform to all setbacks. It did pass the 5-part test. And this board will allow a proposed rear yacht lot coverage of 26.2% with the reduction in the size of the court, or only a maximum rear yard lot coverage, you say that 5 times fast, of 20% is permitted for a proposed 55 by 110-foot tennis court. As shown in the hands-on survey presented by Martin Hands, revised 7/9/18, It's conditioned on the tennis court being sunken below ground level and on the applicant planting evergreen screening running along the exterior north side and south side of the tennis court as indicated in the proposed landscape master plan concept presented by Mike Hill Design, dated 5/27/18, and for the applicant and future owners to maintain the evergreen screening of the tennis court. Granting of the foregoing relief is subject to the conditions of such other permits as the applicant has heretofore acquired or may otherwise be necessary for final approval of the proposed tennis court.
Second.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Close.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Reopening the meeting. I believe we're going to be revising the prior motion on the application of
Charles Styler.
Charles Styler.
Second.
Okay, so we had adjourned it until what date, Keith?
September 20th.
September 20th, and now the applicant would like to come in the next meeting, August 2nd?
Correct.
Okay, so
The applicant's
I'll
not
make that
expecting a decision, we're just changing the holdover date.
Correct.
the holdover date. Okay.
8/2?
Second?
Okay, so it's now
That's the
modified to
date,
8/2?
Yes.
I'll second Keith's motion.
Okay, Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. DeSessa.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Motion to close.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.